Clang! The heavy, old, elm gate slammed shut violently. The thick iron bolt slid roughly into its latch, and the harsh clatter of metal reverberated through the cramped, dim backyard storage shed, swirling and lingering in the air of the confined, narrow space. The noise was like a rusted, giant cold lock, sealing off every last sliver of light and hope inside the room, imprisoning Lin Jiwan completely within this damp, rotten, sun-free cage. Outside the door, a middle-aged man's rough, gravel-like voice, boiling over with rage, crashed through the thin, decaying wooden planks. Every word carried unyielding authority, steeped in icy indifference, with no trace of familial affection. Let me make this perfectly clear. This door will not open until you, stubborn girl, come to your senses and willingly hand over the state. Run factory recruitment spot to Jianqiang. 3 days without food or water, and you still dare to defy this family? I want to see for myself whether your bones are harder than hunger and cold. Do not think throwing a tantrum will force us to give in. In this household, you have no right to make your own decisions. This was followed by the muffled sobbing of Lin's mother, Wang Guixiang. Her tone was hesitant. Though she seemed to plead for mercy, underneath lay the ingrained compliance of a woman long tamed by her husband, moral coercion wrapped in soft words that wounded without drawing blood. Honey, could we perhaps ease up just a little? Third daughter has always been frail. She has never stood cold or hunger well. 3 whole days without a crumb of food or a sip of water. If she keeps going without sustenance, her body cannot hold out. What if something truly terrible happens? That is a living human life. Human life? If she held even a shred of care for this family, she would never act so selfishly. Father Lin let out a heavy snort. Do not keep pleading for her. I worked myself to the bone to raise her, fed and clothed her, and paid for her high school education. How have I wronged her? And look what she does. She shows no concern for the family, never thinks of us or Jianqiang first. She only cares about herself. Selfish through and through, an ungrateful girl we fed and sheltered for nothing. Girls marry out sooner or later. They become part of another family. Any good future they build belongs to someone else. Jianqiang is our Lin family's true heir, our son. He will carry on our name and our bloodline. Our eldest and second sons already have secure paths in life. No need for worry. This rare state-run factory position ought rightfully to go to Jianqiang. It is for our own son's future, yet she clings to it and refuses to yield, showing no regard for kinship. Do not let soft, hard-headedness make you indulge her. But that spot was earned fair and square. Third daughter burned the midnight oil, studying night after night. She won that opportunity through her own hard work. Wang Guixiang twisted the corner of her coarse cloth apron anxiously. Her faint objection was cut short mid-sentence by Father Lin's sharp, brutal outburst. Opportunity? Without this family feeding, clothing, and supporting her, where would she have found the peace to study and prepare for the exam? The whole household pinched pennies to support her. Now when the family needs her to make one small sacrifice, she balks and behaves unreasonably. Where in the world is such an unfilial girl seen? Let her go hungry for a few days. Once her reckless stubbornness is worn down, she will learn to obey. Standing off to one side, the eldest brother Lin Jianjun leaned against the earthen wall with folded arms, a sneer of schadenfreude on his face. Mother, you're far too soft-hearted. You keep letting third sister's delicate-looking appearance fool you. She got spoiled by your leniency. After reading a few books her head swelled, and she truly believes she can cast off family control and do whatever she wants. Once hunger leaves her too weak even to lift her head and fight back, no persuasion will be needed. She will give in of her own accord. Once that stable city job lands in Jianqiang's hands, our whole Lin family will breathe much easier. Then came the bright, arrogant voice of the much-favored youngest brother, Lin Jianqiang. Father is completely right. Third sister is simply ungrateful. Why should she get a comfortable, stable city job, while I get sent off to toil in the poor countryside? Country life is harsh, with heavy labor for work points. It cannot compare to the ease of factory work in town. If she yields obediently, I will send money home every month once I start drawing my factory salary. If she remains obstinate, leave her locked up. We shall see who outlasts whom. At the back of the small crowd, eldest sister Lin Jifan sighed softly. Aligning herself with her father and husband's viewpoint, she spoke indifferently. Third sister, do not keep resisting. What good does a girl get from fighting for grand prospects? Submit to the family's wishes, and you will spare yourself a great deal of suffering. If you push father past his breaking point and destroy all chance of reconciliation, you alone will bear the consequences. Second sister Lin Jirong added her gentle, sounding persuasion. Yes, we share the same parents. Why must things turn so hostile? Sacrifice your own interests for a short while for the good of the whole family, and all your relatives will remember your kindness. The youngest sister Lin Jiao hid timidly behind their mother. Blinking her innocent eyes, she parroted the adults around her. Third sister, please be good. Do not make father and mother angry. Outside the shed stood the whole family, a father applying ruthless pressure, a mother offering half-hearted pleas, elder brothers adding insult to injury. Elder sisters watching coldly, and the youngest child mindlessly echoing the adults. Not one person truly pitied Lin Jiwan, locked inside the dark shed, who had gone 3 days without food or water. A silent consensus united them all. This third daughter of the Lin family existed to make way for her younger brother. She ought to surrender the promising future she had won through endless effort. No one stopped to consider the sweat behind her late night studying. No one cared about her secret hopes and dreams. No one feared that going without food and water might end her young life. Every single one of them only weighed gains and losses, calculating how best to squeeze every last bit of value out of her. The noisy conversation faded together with the retreating footsteps. The courtyard fell quiet. Only bleak autumn wind whistled through cracks in the earthen walls, its sound like soft weeping echoing across the backyard. The cramped storage hut sank into utter stillness. Inside the room, Lin Jiwan's consciousness drifted through boundless murky darkness, as though her whole being had sunk into an eternally frozen ice pool. Chilling dampness seeped into her bones through her bare wrists and ankles. Her limbs felt heavy as lead. Even rolling her eyes took every last scrap of strength she possessed. Every word of the family's argument outside had reached her ears clearly. They hammered against her foggy mind, bringing waves of dull, persistent pain. She could not fully process her situation yet. Overwhelming grief and deep despair welled up inside her. Her eyelids felt as though cast in thick iron. Gritting her teeth, she used every remaining ounce of strength to pry them open just a narrow slit. Dim, murky light trickled in through gaps in the door, barely illuminating her dismal surroundings. Large patches of blackened mud plaster peeled off the low walls. Dark gray mold spread across the base of the walls. Dense, old cobwebs draped over the rotting wooden beams. Rusted hose, tattered bamboo baskets, and heavily patched old cotton rags piled haphazardly in the small room. There was barely space for her to stretch out. A puddle of foul, murky, stagnant water pooled in a corner of the uneven dirt floor. The stench of rot and dust choked her, making breathing difficult. Her back pressed hard against the sharp edge of an old wooden cabinet. Splinters bit through her thin, ragged coarse clothing, stinging her skin. Yet this physical agony paled beside the suffocating mental torment surging in her chest. At that very moment, floods of unfamiliar yet vivid memories crashed into her mind. Searing, splitting pain shot through her skull. 18 full years of the original Lin Jiwan's life washed over her consciousness, forcing her soul to merge with this body from 1969 Beijing. She was Lin Jiwan, third daughter of the Lin household. She occupied an awkward, in-between position in the family. Above her were the eldest and second sisters, who had long learned to look out for themselves. An elder brother with his own separate household whose priority was his own small family, a second brother stationed far away at the border, who seldom returned home. There was also the youngest sister, sweet-tongued and cherished by their parents. Beneath her was Lin Jianxiang, 3 years her junior, on whom the whole family pinned all their hopes. Deep-rooted son, preference ran in every member of the Lin family's blood. To father and mother Lin, raising daughters was never born purely of blood bond affection. It was a calculated investment meant to yield returns. They raised girls so that, when they came of age, they could arrange marriages for them, collect substantial bride price money to support the household, and devote resources to their sons. The eldest and second sisters had no talent for schooling. The eldest, 5 years older than Lin Jiwan, and the second, 3 years older, had left school early. Their parents had arranged their marriages, and the bride prices received were spent to set up the eldest brother's home. Even after marrying away, their parents constantly demanded they give money and resources back to their birth family. The youngest sister was still young, quick-witted, and favored. Her parents planned to marry her off to a well-off household in future. Only the original Lin Jiwan, quiet, enduring, and exceptionally hard, working, obedient, and easy to control, naturally became the family's designated sacrifice. Growing up, fine grains and warm new clothes never came her way. All the hardest, most unpleasant household chores landed on her. Even when she topped her exams time and again, she never received praise. She only heard cold remarks that more schooling would help secure a better, paid marriage match for her. The only family member who treated her with genuine kindness was her second brother, far away at the border garrison. Free of old-fashioned gender bias, every time he received his military allowance, he sent cloth, candy, and small items home for all his sisters equally. Unfortunately, he was thousands of miles away, and correspondence was slow and difficult. The rest of the family deliberately concealed how badly the third daughter was treated. The second brother, stationed far off, never learned of the endless neglect and hardship she endured day in and day out. Her high school graduation in this year marked the bravest stand the original Lin Jiwan had ever taken for herself. She and her friend sat the recruitment examination for the state-run factory. Through countless late-night study sessions, both of them passed. A formal permanent post at a Beijing state-run factory was, in the resource-scarce 1960s, an invaluable chance for ordinary people to change their fate and escape poverty. The day she held her official employment notice, she had hidden herself in the backyard woodshed and wept silently for a long time. She had naively thought her suffering was finally over, that she could escape endless exploitation and finally build a life truly of her own, free from others' manipulation. But when news reached the Lin family, there were no congratulations. Only a premeditated, bare-faced attempt to seize what she had earned. The whole family met in secret and hatched their cruel scheme, seized the factory position she had fought for and handed over to Lin Jianqiang, who had failed the recruitment exam. Under existing policy, urban graduates without formal work assignments would be sent down to the countryside to settle and labor. With the factory spot, Lin Jiwan could stay in Beijing and avoid rural resettlement. Without it, Lin Jianqiang would have to leave for harsh village life. Father and Mother Lin could not bear to send their precious son to endure hardship out in the countryside. They devised a thorough plan to grab every advantage for the Lin family. First, seize the secure factory post for Lin Jianqiang, keeping him safely in the city and away from rural labor. As for the 18-year-old newly graduated Lin Jiwan, they had already secretly asked matchmakers to find suitors. Their intention was to marry her off, using the union to build connections and open opportunities for their sons. The potential matches they had picked out all carried serious drawbacks. None of them were good partners. One was a mid-ranking factory cadre whose first wife had died in domestic strife and who sought a second wife. Some were physically disabled, unwanted by other families. Another candidate was the intellectually challenged youngest son of a large factory director, whom most people avoided. Yet in Father and Mother Lin's eyes, none of these drawbacks mattered. They only saw wealth and influence, dreaming that marriage ties would benefit their sons. When they spoke of these proposals, they spoke grandly of offering her a chance to marry upwards into comfort and prosperity, asking what more she could possibly want. In their cold calculations, the original Lin Jiwan was never a daughter deserving care. She was merely a bargaining chip. Take away the career she had fought for to benefit Lin Jianqiang, then push her into a risky marriage for family gain. Once a woman married, she legally belonged to her husband's household and would not be sent to the countryside. In this arrangement, Lin Jianqiang kept his secure factory job, the family gained influential connections, and every bit of pain and sacrifice fell solely on Lin Jiwan. All her life she had yielded and endured. But for the first time, she rebelled. She knew this was her one chance. She clung tightly to her job offer and refused to hand over the future she had sacrificed so much to obtain. This unyielding defiance enraged Father Lin's patriarchal pride. In his decades-old worldview, his word was law, and his decisions were fate. Every child's career, marriage, and destiny ought to be decided by him. No push, back, or disobedience would be tolerated. Lin Jiwan had always been meek, long-suffering, and compliant. She had been the most docile, easiest child for them to manage. Now this formerly obedient third girl dared to stand her ground, dared to hold fast to her own future, dared to openly defy his absolute authority as head of household. To Father Lin, this was far more than misbehavior. It was insubordination, a challenge to family rules, a trampling of his status. He had never imagined a daughter whom he regarded as his possession could summon such backbone to oppose his will. Her resistance shattered his long-held sense of total household control, filling him with shock and fury far beyond an ordinary quarrel. He would not allow his authority to be shaken by a girl, nor permit such defiance to take root in his home. To break her spirit, reassert his dominance, and set an example for the rest of the family, he took harsh action. He locked her in the backyard storage shed, cutting off all food and water, determined to grind down her will until she submitted. 3 full days and nights. Inside the cold air, tight shed, no water, no food. Outside, close relatives took turns pressuring her, mocking her, and wearing her down with moral appeals. Within, gnawing hunger, piercing cold, endless loneliness and soul-crushing despair. For 3 days, none of her family slipped her a steamed bun or a sip of water. No one spoke up in her defense. Her only potential ally, her second brother, was far away, too distant to offer immediate help. Extreme malnutrition had completely drained every ounce of her vitality. Persistent damp, cold conditions ravaged her frail body, and an unending sense of betrayal shattered all her mental defenses. The 18-year-old girl finally starved to death in that cramped storage shed, little better than a prison, consumed by bitter resentment. At the exact moment the original host's life ebbed away, Lin Jiwan from the modern world crossed over and took possession of this emaciated, dying body. 2 lives marked by strikingly similar fates intertwined. Both had grown up in patriarchal families that valued boys over girls. Both were uncherished and endlessly exploited. Both had struggled desperately, only to end up with nothing. Memories of her past life in the modern era flooded her mind in vivid detail. She too had been raised in a family that favored sons. Her parents' every attention fell on her younger brother. From childhood onward, all resources went to him first. She was expected to yield and sacrifice constantly to meet his every want. For school, she had to earn her tuition through part-time work. After starting work, her salary kept flowing back home. Any refusal brought accusations of unfilial conduct. Years of exploitation finally opened her eyes. When her family demanded she hand over all her savings to buy her brother a wedding house, she made a firm decision. She cut off all ties and refused to be manipulated any longer. She worked alone, living frugally for 5 full years, evading constant demands. Until at last she bought a 100-square-meter apartment outright. She had gained a safe haven entirely her own. She planned renovations and stockpiled supplies, believing she would finally live freely, free from endless emotional drain. Yet, in the blink of an eye, she had traveled through time and space, landing in another identical, cruel trap. Overwhelming grief, collapse, and resentment crashed over her like a tsunami, robbing her of reason. Her throat burned and felt raw, as if rubbed by coarse sandpaper. Drawing on the last faint spark of life left in her, she let out faint, broken gasps. Her voice was so thin it nearly dissolved in the shed's damp air. Every syllable heavy with suppressed sobs and near, total despair. My home, the house I decorated bit by bit with so much care. I scrimped and saved for 5 whole years, and finally got a place that belonged only to me. Heaven above. What did I ever do to deserve this? Why treat me like this? I finally escaped my exploitative birth family. A peaceful, happy life was just beginning. Why send me here, to suffer this suffocating torment all over again? She moved her gaunt, stiff fingers with great effort, fully aware how weightless and strengthless her limbs felt. Cold hopelessness settled deep in her heart. The original host had starved to death under exactly these circumstances. Now trapped in this body on the brink of failure. She herself had gone 3 days without food or water. Her life hung by a thread. If things continued as they were, she would soon share the same fate, dying quietly inside this dark, confined hut. She had fought tooth and nail to break free from her modern-era family, only for every shred of hope to shatter the moment she crossed over. Endless darkness wrapped around her. Her faint will to survive wavered amid despair, tipping slowly toward oblivion. No matter how hard she fought, was she doomed to be squeezed dry and sacrificed by fate? Just as Lin Jiwan's spirit crumbled and she prepared to surrender to death, soft, brilliant white light washed over her entire body without warning. Severe dizziness struck. Everything around her twisted and dissolved like shards of broken glass. The mold, Ridden storage shed, the cold, unforgiving old wooden cabinet, faint echoes of voices in the distance, all vanished in an instant. The biting damp cold receded, replaced by steady, gentle warmth. Her nose caught the familiar scent of laundry fragrance mixed with the sweet aroma of desserts. The hard, digging surface beneath her disappeared. Soft, plush fabric supported her frail frame. Lin Jiwan slowly blinked, her eyes open in bewilderment. A cream-colored ceiling lamp cast soft glow over pale apricot matte walls, spotless and unmarred. Beneath her was the high-end cloud, soft mattress she had chosen at great cost, covered with smooth, skin-friendly cotton bedding. On the nightstand lay her usual collection of essays, and beside it stood a simple white floor lamp. Desks, curtains, wall shelves, every piece of furniture sat exactly where she had placed it. This was the master bedroom of her two-bedroom apartment from modern times, the safe haven she had built with blood and sweat. Wild joy burst through layers of despair. Her heart hammered violently, and hot tears welled in her eyes. Instinctively, she tried to push herself up to confirm this was not a hallucination, but her body remained terribly weak. Her arms buckled under even slight strain. She lifted her torso barely half an inch before falling back onto the mattress, breaking out in a cold sweat. Shock, joy, confusion, and endless doubt churned inside her. She panted rapidly, her voice trembling as she whispered to herself. Am I back? Am I really inside my apartment? Had the time, travel, the Lin family, and the original host's starvation all been nothing but a vivid illusion or dream? Yet persistent hunger and dehydration, plus the stinging dryness in her throat, told her clearly that the prison-like shed, the Lin family's cruel words, and the original host's short, tragic life had all been real. She still inhabited that body on the edge of starvation, yet somehow she was now inside her modern-day home. Brief euphoria faded fast as her body's desperate needs surged to the surface. Setting aside everything else, she knew she urgently needed water, sugar, and easily digested food. If her strength kept ebbing away, she would still die. Turning onto her side and enduring aching, feeble limbs, she inched slowly toward the custom-built snack cabinet beside her bed. Every small movement drained her energy, and fine beads of sweat formed on her forehead. She had designed this cabinet during renovation, positioned so she could reach it easily while lying in bed. Inside were drinks, snacks, and emergency supplies of every kind. Her shaking fingers drew open the cabinet door. The abundance of goods met her gaze, easing some of her inner tension. Drawing on her sharp memory of her stockpile, she searched for supplies that could pull her back from collapse. Her fingers first closed around several individually sealed high-concentration glucose oral solutions. Long-term reserves for low blood sugar and physical exhaustion. She tore open the packaging and drank slowly. Thick, sweet liquid slid down her raw esophagus, replenishing her depleted system. Her spinning, foggy mind cleared little by little. Next, she retrieved cases of electrolyte rehydration drinks. She unscrewed a bottle and sipped slowly. Cool, sweet liquid soothed her cracked throat, counteracting severe dehydration from 3 days without water. The numb stiffness in her limbs subsided. Once the immediate threats of dehydration and hypoglycemia were stabilized, she took well-packed milk sakama pastries. Light and fluffy, they were gentle on a digestive tract damaged by total starvation. She dared not eat greedily, chewing each bite slowly. Rich milky sweetness filled her mouth, and carbohydrates slowly filled her empty stomach, restoring lost energy. After 2 pieces, she opened a carton of room temperature full, fat milk and drank it slowly to soothe her irritated stomach lining. Then she ate 2 Swiss rolls for extra energy. In a night-stand drawer she kept stomach-calming granules. She mixed half a cup with purified water and drank it to comfort her badly stressed digestive system. Throughout the whole process, she kept her appetite firmly in check. She understood perfectly that binge eating after extreme starvation could trigger violent vomiting and stomach spasms, only worsening her physical harm. Once she had eaten, she did not rush to explore. Instead, she leaned against the headboard and rested. The warm, comfortable room calmed some of her panic. She regulated her breathing and sorted through her chaotic thoughts. She was full of confusion. She had fully expected to perish in that cold shed, only to wake in familiar surroundings. She could not untangle what had happened. Had she traveled back to the modern world, or was there some other truth? Whatever the case, restoring her strength came first. The remaining puzzles could wait. After a long rest, most of her debilitating exhaustion lifted. Lin Jiwan pushed herself up using the bed edge, gently working her stiff wrists and ankles. She stepped barefoot onto soft carpet. Warmth spread up from her feet, granting her stretched nerves a moment of relief. She walked slowly to the full-length floor mirror on the wall. When she looked at her reflection, complex emotions welled up and her throat tightened again. Her facial features were exactly the face she had known all her life in modern times, yet her physical condition was unrecognizable. At 18, a girl ought to be vibrant and full of life. This body, however, was reduced to skin and bone. Her cheeks caved inward, her jaw jutted sharply, and her collarbones stood prominent. Her limbs were thin, even in shabby clothing the outlines of bones were plain to see. Chronic malnutrition had left her skin a sickly yellow, without a trace of youthful color. Her skin was rough and covered in fine dry lines. Her long hair was brittle and matted, dull from lack of nourishment. Her exposed hands were dry and peeling. Her fingertips bore calluses from constant labor, alongside tiny, cracked wounds. She lifted a hand and lightly touched her sunken cheek in the mirror. Every last shred of wishful thinking dissolved. There was no more room for delusion. She really had crossed over. She had arrived in 1969 in Beijing inside the Lin household, a family just as poisoned by sun, preference as her modern-day birth home. In her previous life, she had grown up under that same oppressive bias. Since childhood, every resource, every scrap of affection and convenience belonged to her brother. She was expected to be sensible, to give way, to sacrifice, and to subsidize the family. Hunger and unfair treatment had been commonplace. Living under others' eyes had shaped her, and deep-rooted fear of scarcity lived in her bones. That was why, once independent, she had worked relentlessly to earn and save money and to stockpile supplies. Where others chased glamour, she only craved safety and stability. This time, however, Lin Jiwan did not break down. Cold-headed resolve and bitter determination took its place. In her past life, she had built a life for herself starting from nothing. Even with this hopeless beginning, she refused to surrender. She would stand firm, survive, and build a new life worthy of herself. Suppressing her swirling thoughts, she walked straight for the bedroom door. She desperately needed to confirm exactly where she was. Her fingers closed around the cool metal doorknob. She twisted and pulled, but the door would not budge. As if sealed shut by some invisible force. She bent down and pressed one eye to the peephole. Outside there was no apartment corridor, no elevators, no daylight or night sky, nor any courtyard belonging to the Lin family. Only endless, silent, pitch-black emptiness stretched out, boundless and featureless, a void of chaos. Shock rippled through Lin Jiwan. She stood rooted, staring for a long time. A tempting thought arose in her mind. She had electricity, running water, endless food and warmth, and complete peace from outside interference. If only she could stay here forever. No cruel, biased relatives, no hunger and cold, no manipulative family obligations. Food filled the space. Clothing and bedding for all seasons were on hand. Medicine and daily necessities were abundant. Her phone and computer still held power. Even without internet, saved documents, tutorials, and books remained accessible. She could shelter here for her whole life, completely escaping all worldly suffering. Hardly had the thought taken shape when a gentle yet irresistible invisible force wrapped around her entire body. Dizziness spun her world. The bright room, furniture, and lamplight faded and vanished. In an instant, biting cold, mildew stench, and the rough surface of the wooden cabinet closed in around her once more. She had been forced out of the space and returned to the dark, cramped storage shed in the backyard. Yet, something was different. Where she had previously been too weak even to lift her eyes, her body now possessed real strength. The burning emptiness in her stomach was gone. Her limbs were no longer heavy and numb. The crippling exhaustion of near death had lifted. She planted her feet firmly on the uneven dirt floor and stood upright. Though still thin, her vitality and physical power had largely returned. Lin Jiwan's mind raced, piecing together every strange detail. Near death crossing, a complete apartment appearing out of nowhere. A door that could not open to the outside world, endless blackness beyond the peephole, the ability to enter to recover strength. A bold hypothesis, consistent with every observation, crystallized in her thoughts. Could it be that her 100 square meter modern day apartment had crossed through time together with her? Had it become a soul-bound personal gift, a portable space? To test her guess, she held her breath and spoke clearly. My apartment. White light burst forth and enfolded her. In the next heartbeat, the dilapidated shed was gone. She stood once more inside her bright, warm bedroom. Lin Jiwan was certain. She really had traveled to another era, yet fate had not abandoned her entirely. At the brink of death, she had received an extraordinary opportunity. Her hard-earned, carefully furnished 100 square meter 2-bedroom apartment, fully stocked with supplies, had crossed time, space with her, becoming a portable space belonging solely to her. Still, Lin Jiwan could not feel entirely secure. This was only preliminary discovery. Many questions about this space remained unanswered. She knew nothing of its rules and needed to test them one by one. Would food keep indefinitely inside? Would power and water keep running? Could objects from outside be brought in, and could supplies from within be taken out into the world beyond? Many unknowns awaited practical trial. With a cautious, investigative mindset, Lin Jiwan calmed herself and began a thorough, room-by-room inventory of every resource stored within her space. Having endured hunger in her youth, whenever possible she had stockpiled food above all else. To her, provisions represented security, a bottom-line necessity etched deep inside her. Every corner of this 100 square meter 2-bedroom home had been utilized to its full potential. She began in the kitchen. The fully equipped modern kitchen held a complete set of cookware, woks, stockpots, steamers, non-stick pans, knives, and cutting boards. Ceramic bowls, plates, and soup bowls stacked neatly, ready for cooking at any moment. An embedded double-door refrigerator was crammed full, exactly as she had left it right before crossing over. The fresh food compartment overflowed with seasonal fruits, apples, oranges, grapes, kiwi fruit, dragon fruit, strawberries, and pineapples. Cartons of pasteurized eggs, fresh milk, yogurt, cream, and cheese sat orderly alongside cakes, egg tarts, pastries, and soft bread. The freezer section was equally plentiful. Pork, beef, mutton, whole chickens, whole ducks, and assorted seafood filled its shelves. Large quantities of frozen dumplings, wontons, and pre-made flatbreads provided a wide range of quick meals. Against one wall stood two extra-large floor-to-ceiling pantries, her most heavily stocked area of all. They were packed tight without a spare inch. Cured meat snacks, nuts, dried fruit, chocolate, candy, biscuits, pastries. Canned food, instant meals, lotus root starch, cereal, milk, tea mixes, and coffee filled shelf after shelf. All her favorite flavors were present in quantity sufficient to sustain her for a very long time. After checking the food supplies in the kitchen, she continued her inspection tour. Inside the living room storage cabinet, cartons of purified water, electrolyte rehydration drinks, and energy drinks were neatly stacked. There were also large quantities of honey, brown sugar, herbal health, care tea, and grain-based teas. In a dedicated sealed storage area lay huge stockpiles of rice, wheat flour, millet, assorted coarse grains, beans, dried mushrooms, and dehydrated ingredients. The staple food reserves were so abundant that starvation was out of the question. With food fully secured, she turned her attention to clothing, shelter, and daily necessities. The master bedroom's walk-in closet was neatly zoned for all 4 seasons. Summer lightweight short-sleeved blouses and dresses, spring and autumn knit jackets and hoodies, thick winter cotton, padded coats, and down jackets. Wind-proof overcoats, along with all kinds of undergarments, home loungewear, socks, and accessories were available in plenty. Inside storage cabinets were neatly folded thick winter quilts, lightweight spring, autumn bed quilts, warm blankets, throw pillows, and mattress pads. Whether in scorching heat or bitter cold, there was more than enough for her constant changes of bedding and protection against freezing weather. She would never suffer from cold. Next, she walked into the second bedroom. She had purposely left out any bed during the renovation and converted this room into a private storage room. As a content creator who occasionally did live stream sales, she had kept numerous samples sent by merchants. The shelves held a vast and eclectic assortment of goods, far more than ordinary household supplies. Apart from cartons of facial tissue, body care sets, sewing kits, and cloth materials, there were portable outdoor tents, compact portable cooking pots, thick yoga mats, hand-held flashlights, multi-purpose Swiss Army knives, waterproof rain capes. Large, capacity vacuum flasks, portable storage backpacks, mosquito, repellent products, and simple repair tools. Every corner brimmed with items of all sizes. Leisure goods, outdoor gear, and household sundries mixed together, forming a rich, comprehensive collection. Last of all, she focused on checking the most critical life-saving medical reserves. In the corner stood a large heavy-duty medical first aid box beside a multi-compartment medicine cabinet, exceptionally well stocked. Common household medications such as cold remedies, fever-reducing and anti-inflammatory pills, cough suppressants, gastrointestinal regulators, allergy medicine, and painkillers were all on hand. First, aid supplies for external wounds were complete: iodophor, rubbing alcohol, cotton swabs, gauze, bandages, adhesive bandages, hemostatic spray, scald ointment, and wound dressings. There were also large numbers of blood, tonic oral liquids, health care granules, multivitamins, and nutritional supplements. Medicines and supplies covered everything from mild, everyday ailments to emergency trauma care, sufficient to handle most common illnesses and accidents. After taking inventory of all supplies, she returned to the sink to test the utilities. She twisted the faucet, and clear tap water flowed out steadily. The water pressure was stable and the water clean. Electricity functioned perfectly throughout the space. Lights burned bright, and every power socket worked. She picked up the smartphone and laptop on the table and pressed the power buttons. Both screens lit up immediately, fully charged. The only drawback was that this independent dimension had no external signal. There was no internet access and no way to communicate with the outside world. This hardly hindered her, however. Massive volumes of data had been pre-downloaded and stored locally on her phone and laptop. Practical life knowledge, survival skills, cooking tutorials, medical references, historical materials, teaching resources, books and documentaries. All files remained intact, ready for her to open, study, and browse at any time, permanently preserved. Having finished the full inventory and confirmed that water and electricity functioned properly, Lin Jiwan began methodically testing the space's features. First test: removing items out of the space. She took a small, exquisitely packaged rice cake from the snack cabinet, held it in her palm, and mentally spoke the thought, "Leave." A flash of white light, and she was back inside the small, dark room. The rice cake rested unharmed in her hand. Conclusion: items from within the space could be brought out into the outside world. Second test: bringing outside objects into the space. On the dirt floor at her feet sat an old aluminum kettle used by the original host for cold water. Its paint was chipped and worn, its surface covered in scratches. She bent down and picked up the battered kettle, concentrating her mind and thinking. Enter space. In the blink of an eye, the kettle in her hands vanished. When she sensed the space, it had landed safely on the living room floor inside. Conclusion: physical objects from the outside could be brought freely into the space for storage. Third test: remote telekinetic access. Standing in the dark small room, she focused her mind on the kettle she had left in the space's living room, wishing to retrieve it. The thought had barely formed when light flickered, and the old kettle appeared instantly beside her hand. Another thought, and the kettle vanished again, returning to its original spot in the space. She repeated the process several times. Retrieval and deposit worked smoothly regardless of distance, without the slightest lag. Conclusion: she could store and retrieve supplies remotely through willpower alone, no physical contact required. All three tests succeeded. Lin Jiwan felt considerably more at ease. The space allowed entry and exit, transport and remote retrieval, all completely concealed. In this tightly controlled era where people watched and gossiped constantly, that was an enormous advantage. The final, most vital test was the space's normal, temperature preservation capability. She re-entered the space, went to the kitchen, boiled water in the electric kettle and poured the scalding hot water into a clear glass cup. Steam curled upward from the boiling water. She set the steaming cup down on the living room coffee table, neither moving it nor refrigerating it. Then she busied herself tidying scattered storage bags and putting away the old kettle she had tested with, letting time pass. Once all loose items were neatly arranged, she looked back at the cup on the table. No more steam rose. The once boiling water had cooled completely to room temperature. Lin Jiwan understood at once. The space itself offered no constant temperature or static preservation effect. It maintained ordinary indoor room temperature. Objects would cool or warm according to normal physical rules. Uncooked fresh food and cooked meals left exposed would still spoil. Nothing stayed preserved indefinitely. Yet, she felt no disappointment, only relief. Though the main hall lacked special preservation properties, she had a fully functional modern refrigerator. Its powerful freezing and fresh keeping functions could store meat, fruit, desserts, cooked dishes, eggs, and dairy goods long-term, perfectly making up for the space's shortcoming. With all tests completed, Lin Jiwan had a full grasp of every capability and minor limitation of her spatial ability. The weight on her heart lifted. Earlier she had only eaten a little sweet snack to temporarily soothe her hunger, a superficial fix for her severely depleted body. Right now, the most urgent thing was to eat a hot proper meal and regain strength. Lin Jiwan turned toward the kitchen, intending to cook a simple bowl of noodles with some meat and vegetables. But the moment she reached for kitchen utensils, her sharp ears caught faint voices coming from outside the space. People were walking toward the small storage hut. Her heart tightened. Without delay, she mentally willed herself to leave the space. White light faded, and she found herself back inside the dim, cold storage hut. There was no time to devise a plan. Her body went limp. She slid heavily down the wall onto the ground, eyes shut, breathing faint and shallow, perfectly simulating total physical exhaustion and fainting. Rough, chaotic footsteps echoed from outside. More than one person approached the backyard prison with bullying hostility. It was the Lin family. Lin Jiwan's mind steadied. Thoughts raced. Begging and showing weakness would achieve nothing. She was still physically weak and could not afford open confrontation. The original host had resisted helplessly, only to starve to death inside this small dark room, dying a miserable death ignored by everyone. She would not repeat that fate. In an instant, an idea took root in her mind: feign death. Not actual death, but deliberately slow and suppress her vital signs to create the illusion that she was critically ill, hanging by a thread and on the verge of passing away. Only when it looked as though a life was about to be lost would these self-interested, calculating family members truly panic. Only by convincing them she was dying would they dare no longer lock her up, starve her, or pressure her. Only then could she use the excuse of needing emergency help to escape this prison, break free of her predicament, and get out of the Lin household. In her previous life, she had survived alone for years. For self-defense in dangerous situations, she had learned breathing techniques. She could precisely regulate her respiration, slow her heartbeat, and contain her bodily signs, lowering them to such a minimum that she looked indistinguishable from someone barely clinging to life. Having made up her mind, Lin Jiwan suppressed all outward signs of vitality. Her limbs went completely slack, her head lolled weakly to one side. Her gaunt, sallow face drained of all color. Even her fingertips hung limp and lifeless. Her breathing became extremely shallow, so faint it was barely perceptible. She presented every appearance of someone gasping for breath, teetering on the brink of death. Barely had she adjusted her condition when clink. Crash! The rusty old iron lock on the door was wrenched open violently. Then came a brutal kick, slamming the door hard against the earthen wall. Dust showered down from the ceiling beams. Father Lin's coarse, furious roar boomed into the room. Ungrateful girl. Locked up for 3 days and still you refuse to see reason. Have you thought it over yet? How dare you defy your own father? He strode inside with heavy steps, carrying the overbearing authority of a man who always got his way at home, every word steeped in menace. Feeling the hardship now? Realize how powerful your father is. If you've come to your senses, get up right now. Hand over the state-owned factory job to your brother. Obey the family's arrangements. Behave yourself, and in a few days I will find you a good marriage match. I raised you. It is your duty to sacrifice for this family and for your brother. You lose nothing by doing so. 3 sets of lighter footsteps followed him into the dim hut. Her idle younger brother Lin Jianxiang, her hesitant soft-hearted mother Wang Guixiang, and her impressionable younger sister Lin Jiao. All 4 members of the Lin family had arrived. The tiny gloomy hut was packed. Oppressive hostility hung thick in the air. Lin Jiwan kept her eyes closed and did not stir. Her breathing remained extremely faint. She made not a sound. An eerie silence descended. In the past, even when stubbornly defying them, she would at least show some sign of breathing or small movements. Today, Lin Jiwan lay unnervingly still. Father Lin frowned, irritation rising. He stepped forward and roughly grabbed the back of her collar, yanking her frail body off the ground. Are you dead to the world? Playing dead to fool me? Can you hear me talking to you? Suspended in his grip, the girl's head lolled. Her eyes stayed shut. Limbs hung limp, no muscle tension at all. She sagged like a boneless sack, offering no resistance, not even the slightest tremor. Silence spread through the room. Lin Jianxiang, who had arrived smirking, eager to watch his older sister surrender the coveted stable job, dropped his grin. He stepped forward and leaned in to observe. He curled his lip, sounding skeptical and impatient. "Dad, why isn't she moving? Could she have actually fainted from hunger? She's just pretending to scare us." The youngest sister Lin Jiao peeked out from behind their mother. She stared at her pale, lifeless older sister and frowned, whispering timidly. "Third sister, why won't she speak?" Wang Guixiang was the first to feel genuine alarm. Meek and compliant to her husband, she favored her son and youngest daughter. She had never lavished deep affection on this long, suffering, exploited third daughter. Yet this child had grown inside her womb and been raised by her own hands. Compared with the rest of the cold, blooded family, she retained a flicker of maternal softness. Seeing her daughter's gaunt, bloodless face and near death stillness, Wang Guixiang panicked. She hurried forward, trying to support the girl still gripped by her husband, her voice shaking visibly. "Stop pulling her so roughly. Look at her condition, something is very wrong. This does not look like an act. She has eaten and drunk nothing for 3 whole days. Her body was already weak. She cannot withstand this mistreatment." Father Lin burned with rage over her disobedience. He huffed, refusing to believe the girl who had defied him could be so fragile. "She is faking. Spoiled behavior. Trying to threaten the family with death. I will not fall for her tricks." He tightened his grip and shouted again. "Wake up. Stop putting on this miserable show. I am not fooled." No amount of shouting or shaking roused Lin Jiwan. Her breathing stayed barely detectable. Even Lin Jianxiang, who cared only about seizing the job, began to feel uneasy. A calculating look crossed his face as he put on a falsely reasonable tone. "Dad, I can fetch cold water from the yard. Splash it on her face and she will wake right up. That will teach her to defy the family." Wang Guixiang rushed to block him in terror. "No, you must not do that. She has fainted from starvation. Her body is terribly weak. Cold water would send chills through her system. Something truly terrible could happen." Trembling, she carefully took the limp girl from Father Lin and held her in her arms. Her shaking fingers felt for the pulse in her daughter's neck. At that touch, Wang Guixiang turned deathly pale. The pulse under her fingertips was almost imperceptible. The rise and fall of her chest was so faint it might vanish any second. Wang Guixiang's legs nearly buckled beneath her. She spoke in a terrified, trembling voice. "Husband, this is bad. Something is truly wrong. Feel for yourself." Her breath is almost gone. Her pulse can barely be felt. This is no pretense. She is on the verge of collapse. Her words struck like thunder inside the cramped hut. The rage on Father Lin's face froze. Unease stirred inside him. He released his hold and leaned down, clumsily feeling for Lin Jiwan's breath against her nostrils. In that moment, Father Lin was stunned. The breath against his fingertips was so faint it was almost non-existent. The girl's skin felt cold. Her limbs lay slack. Her face was paper, pale, lips cracked and bloodless. She looked ready to draw her last breath at any moment. Dead silence fell over everyone. Father Lin had lived a long life, domineering and biased toward sons. He regarded daughters as mere tradable tools. Yet a daughter could not die inside this house. He calculated shrewdly. This clever, capable girl could secure advantageous marriage offers, bring substantial bride, price money and connections to benefit the whole family, especially his son. All the resources poured into raising her had yet to yield returns. His son's job, household subsidies, future bride, price money, and social advantages would all be lost. If she starved to death at home, they would gain nothing. Worse, the Lin family would bear the shameful reputation of having driven their own daughter to her grave. Public opinion was harsh in this era. Neighbors would talk endlessly. Scandal would ruin Lin Jianxiang's prospects for marriage and employment. Once dead, she would be completely worthless. Father Lin's anger gave way to fear and cold calculation, leaving only irritation and anxiety. His complexion alternated between green and white. He gritted his teeth and growled. What terrible misfortune! She still clings to a thread of life. She is not dead yet. Alive, she still had value to be exploited, to bring bride, price money and opportunities for his son. Dead, he lost everything. He made a quick decision, abandoning his earlier bullying tone and snapping sharp orders. Stop standing around. Pick her up at once. Get her to the health clinic immediately. She cannot die inside this house. As long as there is still breath in her body, we must save her. Only alive can she still be useful to us. If she dies, our whole family will suffer the consequences. Lin Jianqiang was thoroughly frightened. He dropped his suggestion about cold water. All his arrogance vanished, replaced by anxiety. Lin Jiao clutched her mother's hem tightly in fright, her face pale, not daring to make a sound. Wang Guixiang was already utterly distraught. She hastily held her daughter, whose body was ice, cold and on the brink of death, in her arms. Her eyes were red, torn between fear and remorse, her voice choked with sobs. It's all my fault for not stopping this, such a good child, reduced to this state of starvation. No one knew that Lin Jiwan, held in everyone's frantic embrace and seemingly dying, was perfectly clear, headed inside. She could distinctly feel the panic of those around her, her father's cold calculations and weighing of interests, and her mother's genuine alarm mixed with faint traces of pity. She had succeeded. By slowing her breathing and feigning mortal peril, she had exploited the Lin family's selfish scheming. They did not love or cherish her, yet they could not bear to let her die. They could not bear to forfeit the benefits, betrothal money, connections, and prospects she could bring them. With that alone, she would get out of that dark little room today. She would escape being starved to death and grasp her first chance at survival since arriving in this world. The moment she was carefully lifted up, Lin Jiwan kept up her appearance of barely drawing breath, devoid of any spark of life. She let the flustered family hurry outside with quick, stumbling steps. The whole family rushed out through the small back-yard gate in a state of chaos. This was the suburban outskirts of the capital. Rows upon rows of single-story courtyard houses formed the staff residential compound of the state-run suburban agricultural machinery repair and manufacturing plant. In the 1960s and 1970s, large state-owned factories offered generous welfare. Housing was allocated by the factory and private home building was uncommon. Only senior and core workers were granted the privilege of a separate small courtyard house. Father Lin was 48 years old, at the peak of his seniority and technical skill as an experienced worker. He had joined the factory as an apprentice back in 1946, a genuine grade 5 senior agricultural machinery repair technician. Workers recruited in 1946 were among the plant's founding generation. They had endured early hardships, lived through the Great Leap Forward, and sustained years of production. Skilled and diligent, they earned a steady monthly wage of roughly 50 yuan. In 1969, when most people lived in poverty, senior formal technicians with over 20 years of service enjoyed stable household circumstances and were widely respected. Thanks to his long-term seniority, the extra points granted to long-standing core staff, and the number of family members counted for housing allocation, every household of active and retired workers in the agricultural machinery plant knew one another well. News spread fast in this tight-knit neighborhood. It was dusk, the hour when work ended. Factory workers in faded work clothes, faintly scented with machine oil and rust, rode their sturdy 28-inch bicycles back to the compound in small groups. Women from the compound stood about washing vegetables and starting their stoves with enamel basins in hand. Groups of school-aged children ran and skipped home. Smoke curled from every chimney, painting a vivid, bustling evening scene of the workers' residential compound. Normally, the Lin family's backyard was quiet and seldom visited. Today, however, the whole family burst out in disarray, carrying the girl. Their flustered appearance could not be concealed. Hey, isn't that the Lin family? Who are they holding? That looks like their third daughter. Old Lin is one of our factory's most senior grade 5 master craftsmen. His family is supposed to be well off. How did the child end up like this? Good heavens. Her face is as white as paper. She's not moving a muscle. What on earth happened? Passing co-workers and neighbors stopped short, their eyes fixed on the dying young girl in Wang Guixiang's arms. Every household struggled to make ends meet in those days. Everyone knew what overwork and hunger felt like. Yet Lin Jiwan's condition went far beyond ordinary malnutrition. She looked drained of blood and vitality, utterly lifeless. A sight that sent a chill through onlookers. Whispers circulated among the watching families. The girl looks gravely ill, no color in her face at all. Mr. and Mrs. Lin always seemed honest and decent, well regarded at the factory. How could they let their daughter waste away like this? She is only 18 or 19, in the prime of her youth. How can she be this feeble? It looks as though she might not pull through. Hushed murmurs and curious gazes pressed down on the 4 members of the Lin family. Father Lin's heart tightened. Cold sweat broke out on his back. Panic surged within him. For 23 years he had worked at the agricultural machinery plant, a founding generation veteran worker. In the compound, he enjoyed a reputation as a hard-working, dependable family man and skilled senior craftsman. Thanks to factory, allocated housing and his steady salary, his family had lived respectably. If word got out that he had locked up his own daughter and starved her for 3 days and 3 nights, everything would be ruined. Morals and family reputation mattered greatly in the workers' compound. The accusation of mistreating one's own flesh and blood, of starving a daughter to the brink of death, would spread through the whole factory and residential compound overnight. His long-built good name would be destroyed. He would become the subject of gossip among his colleagues. Worse still, his son Lin Jianxiang's future factory recruitment, job, grade evaluations, and marriage prospects all depended on the family's standing. A stain on their family reputation would haunt the boy for the rest of his life, making him a social outcast in the factory and compound. Father Lin's mind raced. He suppressed his alarm, forced an expression of sincere distress, and stepped forward to address the watching neighbors and factory colleagues. His tone sounded natural and earnest. Dear neighbors, fellow workers. This has been a terrible shock. The girl was tidying the yard at home when she slipped and fell. She fainted straight away and lost consciousness. When we found her, she was already stiff and unresponsive. We were terrified for her life and are rushing her to the health clinic at once. Wang Guixiang quickly backed him up, eyes glistening with tears, her face showing genuine alarm. She nodded repeatedly. Yes. One moment she was fine, the next she collapsed. We were beside ourselves with fright. The two spoke in perfect unison, covering up their crime of confinement and starvation. The onlookers were all familiar neighbors. No one wished to think ill of the factory's senior craftsman. Though some harbored doubts, there was no concrete proof to press further. They stepped aside to clear the way. Seeing how faint and lifeless the young girl was, people offered well-meaning advice. Hurry on, don't delay. Old Lin, keep your spirits up. Young people have resilience. She ought to pull through. She looks extremely critical. Further delay could cost her life. Go get her treated quickly. Fearful of saying too much and giving themselves away, Father Lin urged them on in a low voice. Let's go. We must not waste time saving the child. Carrying Lin Jiwan, the family hurried across the rows of courtyard houses toward the health clinic. Jostled by their rapid strides, they reached the commune health clinic roughly 10 minutes later. Only a few elderly patients remained in the clinic as dusk fell. The compound was quiet. A middle-aged female doctor was on duty. At the sight of Lin Jiwan being carried in, the doctor's expression darkened at once. She set down her medical records and hurried forward. With years of experience treating poor farmers and under-nourished workers' family members, she could easily tell the difference between exhaustion and life-threatening starvation caused collapse. One glance told her the situation was catastrophic. Lay her flat on the examination bed, quickly. Wang Guixiang carefully set her down. The cold, plain wooden bed made the girl look even paler. Her lips were cracked and bluish. Her eyelids were clamped shut. Her chest rose and fell so faintly one could barely detect her breathing. She lay deathly still. The doctor swiftly checked her nasal breathing, pulse, and eye reflexes. After her quick examination, her face turned grim and stern. She demanded sharply, "How have you people been looking after this girl? This is severe malnutrition and total physical collapse brought on by starvation, related organ failure. Her body's energy reserves are completely exhausted. Her blood sugar is nearly 0. Her internal organs are severely depleted. Had you brought her in 10 or 15 minutes later, she would have died." Shock and frustration colored the doctor's voice. A girl of 18 or 19 should be full of vitality. How could she be starved to the verge of death? What sort of household are you running? Father Lin's complexion shifted between ashen and flushed. Ashamed and flustered, he avoided meeting the doctor's eyes and offered evasive excuses. "Doctor, she just suddenly fainted. She has always been delicate and eats very little. We never expected something like this to happen." The doctor refused to accept such hollow explanations and continued her physical examination, her frown deepening. The patient is unconscious, with extremely shallow breathing. Her bodily functions are close to shutting down. Her mouth is badly parched. Her stomach and intestines are completely empty and shrunken. She cannot swallow even liquid food on her own. Forcing her to eat would make her choke and suffocate. The only way to save her life right now is intravenous injection. We must administer glucose solution to sustain her vital signs. A nurse stepped forward with saline and glucose medicine. She disinfected the skin and inserted the needle deftly. Clear liquid dripped drop by drop, barely keeping Lin Jiwan's fading life alive. Though simple, the commune health clinic possessed basic emergency intravenous infusion equipment. It could only stabilize her condition, not cure the underlying damage. Staring at the falling drops of fluid, the doctor's expression did not soften. She issued a grave warning. Let me be perfectly clear. The commune health clinic is too poorly equipped to reverse this severe starvation, caused exhaustion. Her internal damage is extensive. Her organs are on the brink of injury. She must be transferred immediately to the municipal city-run hospital for inpatient observation, specialized nutritional infusions, and targeted treatment. Even a 1-hour delay could prove fatal. No sooner had the doctor finished speaking than Lin Jianqiang, who had been simmering with schemes, lost his composure. He cared nothing for his third sister's survival, only for the expense. He blurted out, his face twisted by distress over money. Transfer her to a big city hospital? How much is that going to cost? She is already getting drips and stabilizing. Won't she recover with rest? Why waste so much money? In his mind, locking her up and starving her for 3 days to pressure her into giving up the factory job had all been for his own benefit. Now that she was supposedly stabilizing, spending large sums on treatment would make all his previous efforts pointless and cost the family money. He was thoroughly unwilling. Father Lin also felt a sharp pang at the thought of expense. Though a senior skilled worker drawing a steady wage, he had many mouths to feed at home. Every copper coin was spent cautiously. Treatment at a large city hospital would cost a great deal. Yet he was more calculating than his son and understood this was not the moment to show his true feelings. He shot Lin Jianqiang a fierce glare, signaling him to hold his tongue. Lin Jianqiang, young and impulsive, remained sullen, his face openly showing resentment and distress over the cost. Tension hung thick in the examination room. Then the eyelashes of the supposedly unconscious Lin Jiwan fluttered almost imperceptibly. She timed her performance perfectly, putting on a convincing display of mortal frailty. Her eyelids lifted a fraction. Her gaze was unfocused and empty. Her breath was as thin as wisp of smoke. Her lips moved faintly. In a broken, hoarse whisper barely loud enough to hear, she babbled fragmentedly. Don't lock me up, please don't keep me locked away, I'm so hungry, so cold, I won't misbehave anymore. There were no screams or accusations. Only raw fear and abject terror, the instinctive trembling of someone traumatized by confinement and abuse. Those soft mumbled words reached the doctor's ears. Every lie and evasion the father and son had told crumbled instantly. The doctor's face turned ice cold. Her gaze sharpened. She fixed the 3 family members with a stern stare and thundered. What do you mean, don't lock me up? What do you mean I won't misbehave anymore? You lied straight to my face. This girl did not simply collapse from poor health or refuse food out of pettiness. She was deliberately locked away and starved until she nearly died. Suspicion welled up in her mind. Her piercing gaze swept across the 3 of them. Every word rang out loud and clear. I strongly suspect this girl is not your biological daughter at all. Could you be human traffickers? Have you abducted her and kept her imprisoned and abused? Are you not her real family? Her words struck like thunder, terrifying the Lin family out of their wits. Lin Jianqiang's knees buckled. His face turned deathly pale. He waved his hands frantically, stammering incoherently. No, absolutely not. Doctor, please do not say such things. She really is my 3rd elder sister, blood of our blood. If we had kidnapped her, we would never have gone to the trouble of bringing her here for treatment. We could simply have abandoned her. She is truly our flesh and blood. Father Lin panicked as well and hurried to back him up. There has been a terrible misunderstanding, Doctor. She is our own daughter. We work at the nearby agricultural machinery plant. Our neighbors in the residential compound can vouch for us. We are definitely not human traffickers. 8-year-old Lin Jiao, eyes red with fright, clung tightly to her mother's clothes and spoke timidly in support. "It's my elder sister, my real elder sister. We are one family." The doctor studied their flustered, guilty demeanors, still full of doubt. She said coldly, "If she truly is your own child, how could you treat her with such cruelty? The moment hospital costs are mentioned, you resist wholeheartedly. Where is any trace of family affection?" She stood firm and unyielding. "She must be transferred to the big hospital and given full proper treatment. No half-hearted measures will do. I happen to be off duty now. I will go with you to the municipal hospital and oversee her treatment personally. If you try to delay or skimp on her care in any way, I will report this immediately to the public, security authorities, and to your factory's disciplinary committee." Cowed completely, Lin Jianxiang dared offer no further objection and had to nod in reluctant agreement. The group set off at once, transporting the still, infused Lin Jiwan to the city hospital under the doctor's watchful eye. Observing them along the journey, the doctor studied their facial features and noticed shared physical traits. She confirmed they were indeed biological parents and children, not abductors and their captive. Yet the fact that they were blood-related only made their cold-hearted, patriarchal mistreatment of the daughter all the more deplorable. Upon arrival at the city hospital, they went through registration, file, opening, emergency examinations, and admission procedures. Specialized nutritional monitoring and intravenous drips were set up. Under the doctor's watchful eye, the Lin family dared not resort to any trickery and had no choice but to pay for the treatment honestly. Once the nurses had attached long-acting nutritional drips, monitored her vital signs, and settled her safely in bed, Lin Jiwan was out of immediate danger. The upright doctor relaxed her guard slightly. Instead of leaving right away, she sought out a nurse colleague at this hospital and spoke to her in a low voice. "This poor young girl has been badly mistreated and starved to near death by her family. Please keep a close eye on her. Watch her family members. Do not let them stop her medication or harass the girl privately. Notify me at once if anything out of the ordinary occurs." Having given those instructions while no one else was looking, she leaned over to tuck the quilt gently around Lin Jiwan. With a quick, discreet movement, she slipped a tiny folded scrap of paper into the girl's cool palm. The gesture was so subtle that the Lin family waiting outside the ward doorway noticed nothing. Only after that did the doctor turn and leave. The instant she stepped out of the ward, Father Lin dropped his pretense completely. Rage and bitter resentment boiled over on his face. His features darkened. He ground his teeth and hissed in a suppressed voice, consumed by frustration. What rotten luck. Nothing but misfortune. Treatment at the large city hospital was far costlier than at the commune clinic. Simple saline drips had cost merely a few mao. Between emergency examinations, hospital, bed fees, specialized nutrient solutions and round-the-clock monitoring, the total came to 12 yuan and 60 fin. Ordinary factory workers earned 30-odd yuan a month. Even Father Lin, a grade 5 senior technician with more than 20 years service, only drew just over 50 yuan monthly. 12 yuan and 60 fin amounted to nearly half his monthly salary. That sum could buy grain to feed the whole household for a long stretch of daily life. Spending that money felt like having flesh torn from his own body. He stared down at his supposedly unconscious daughter on the hospital bed, hatred burning in his eyes. He spoke through gritted teeth. 12 yuan and 60 fin wasted because of you. You cursed money, losing girl. Lie there and recover. Every cent spent today, every expense incurred, you will pay every last bit back, with interest. After venting his fury, he calmed down and began making calculating arrangements. He glanced toward timid 8-year-old Lin Jiao and gave her a sharp order. The rest of us are going home. Yao, you stay here and keep watch over your third elder sister. Wang Guixiang stepped forward at once to object, her face full of worry. Husband, Yao is only 8 years old. She understands so little. How can a small child stay alone in a hospital? I ought to stay and look after her instead. You stay. Father Lin frowned and retorted harshly, driven by selfish calculation. If you stay here, who will cook supper for the family? Who will tend the vegetable patch in the compound? Who will wash all the clothes? If all the household chores are left undone, shall we all go hungry when we get home? She lies there unconscious. She needs no feeding or special care. Nothing bad will happen to her in bed. Yao can keep an eye on her. As soon as she wakes up, you run straight home and send word. Do not neglect our housework. Timid and obedient by nature, Wang Guixiang never dared oppose her husband. Her lips parted, yet in the end she fell silent, filled with helpless guilt. Lin Jiao was only 8 years old. She shrank back, frightened by her father's sudden harsh tone. Her small hands squeezed the hem of her faded coarse cloth blouse until her knuckles whitened. Her whole body trembled slightly. She had no courage to protest. She lifted her young, timid face and nodded obediently. In her mind, her father had usually treated his youngest daughter gently and affectionately. He saved tasty food for her, and new cloth was often made into garments for her and her brother. He had always been the kind parent in the household. Today's father felt like a complete stranger. He was furious, irritable, and impatient, with no trace of his usual warmth. Young and naive, Lin Jiao could not understand why the whole family had turned so terrifying merely because her third elder sister had fallen ill and been admitted to hospital. But she was only 8. She could not grasp adult anger or the complicated self-serving schemes within the family, and she dared not disobey. Father said she was to stay, and so she had no choice but to obey. The spacious yet cold, walled ward of the Municipal General Hospital held 8 beds packed close together. Other patients occupied the remaining beds, each attended by their own family members. Soft murmurs of conversation, quiet coughs, and the padding footsteps of nurses drifted through the room. It was never completely silent. This faint hum of human presence soothed the fear gnawing at Lin Jiao's heart a little. She told herself that there were doctors, nurses, and other grown-ups around. If she simply sat quietly by her elder sister's bedside, she would not be afraid. The small girl dragged a low wooden stool over and sat obediently beside the hospital bed. Her soft little hands carefully closed around Lin Jiwan's cold, pale hand. Her voice was gentle, threaded with hurt and worry as she whispered, "Third sister, please wake up. When you wake up we can go home. Mother will make you nice food. Then you won't faint or hurt anymore." She sat holding her sister's hand, keeping watch faithfully. Weary from the late afternoon and the fright she had endured, her head nodded drowsily. Before long she curled up over the edge of the bed, her breathing growing slow and even as she fell fast asleep. A tiny huddled figure, meek and pitiable. Meanwhile, on the hospital bed, Lin Jiwan lay motionless with her eyes shut. Seemingly deep in coma, yet her mind remained fully awake. She could clearly feel the warm, soft touch of the child's hand in hers. She heard the soft, steady sound of the little girl's breathing. The cool evening breeze and faint smell of disinfectant filled her senses. Tucked tight in her palm was a thin slip of paper. Her thoughts were sharp and calm. The near-death performance she had staged today had succeeded. Neighbors from the compound, workmates from the factory had all witnessed what happened. The health center doctor had even escorted her over for transfer and overseen her treatment. The Lin family's decades-old reputation for decency and upright conduct was badly shaken. They cared desperately about appearances, public opinion, and the futures of their 2 sons. From now on they would no longer dare to lock her up, starve her, or wear her down. Not out of conscience or remorse, out of fear. If they mistreated her again, everyone would know they abused their own daughter. Word would spread through the factory and reach the neighborhood authorities. Her brother's chances of factory jobs, official ratings, and marriage prospects would be ruined for good. For the time being, she had saved her own life. Now she must plan for escape and true freedom. When no one was looking, Lin Jiwan moved her fingers under cover of the quilt. Silently she pulled a milk candy from her portable spatial storage. She had already removed its modern-style wrapper inside the space. Sweet milk flavor spread across her tongue. The sugar slid down her throat, easing the weakness and exhaustion draining her body. While the candy restored her strength, she kept her eyes closed and mentally mapped out what she must do next. The greatest opportunity, and also the greatest danger, in this life was the official job offer as clerk at the state-owned textile mill. It was a coveted, stable position. Decent pay came every month with welfare benefits. No need to be sent down to the countryside to toil on the land. This opportunity had come to her thanks to her best friend. Back when she was at school, that loyal, upright friend had got wind of the internal recruitment. She had immediately come to fetch the original Lin Jiwan to sit the entrance exam together. The mill offered many different posts. Her friend had applied for the desirable accounting clerk role and urged Lin Jiwan to go for the steady clerk position. They had dreamed of working side by side in town, supporting each other and avoiding rural labor forever. The original girl had been overjoyed, full of hope for the future. She had believed that after enduring the hardship of study, she could build an independent life for herself, free from her family's control. She had studied her hardest and won the post, staking everything on it. But this enviable secure job had turned into a death sentence. Greed and deep-rooted son preference ruled the Lin family. All they cared about was advancing their sons. When they learned she had been accepted, there was no joy, only scheming. They had tried to force her to hand the job over to her idol, good-for-nothing younger brother Lin Jianqiang. She had refused to give up the future she had fought so hard to earn. For her defiance, she had been locked in a cold, dark room, denied food and water for 3 days and nights until she starved to death. That was when Lin Jiwan from another world had taken over this body. Remembering it all left her cold inside. She saw clearly the traps lying ahead of her. Only 2 paths opened before her, both fraught with difficulty. The first option, take up her post at the textile mill. Yet the outcome was easy to foresee. The Lin family would never let her hold that position peacefully. They would keep plotting to hand the work to Lin Jianqiang. Even if she managed to start work, as long as she drew a salary and held the post, her family would cling to her and drain her dry. They would demand her wages and her benefits. She would bear every hardship while her relatives reaped all rewards. Her earnings would fund her brother's bride, price, their new house, and all the household expenses. She would remain trapped in that predatory family for the rest of her days, living only for others. The second option, give up the job, sell the position, and flee the Lin household entirely. Official work postings fetched high prices on the quiet in this era. The money would give her capital to start over. But escape presented its own dilemmas. There were only 2 realistic ways to break free of her birth family and travel far away. One was early marriage to a husband from another region. Yet, she had only just arrived in this time period. She knew little of the world and its people. Rushing into marriage would mean jumping out of the wolf's den straight into the tiger's lair. That course was out of the question. The other choice was to sign up for rural education and be sent to a remote village. Far from the city, far from the machinery, factory compound, and her exploitative family, no one could control her. Still, she hesitated. She knew many stories of how brutally hard village life could be in this era: breaking labor, scarcity of supplies, tangled human relations, endless gossip, and hidden dangers. Could she survive such hardship? If she stayed in the city within reach of the Lins, she would have to navigate constant plots and exploitation. In these times, public reputation carried immense weight. The demand for filial piety would bring endless trouble. She would keep losing money and peace of mind. Both roads held obstacles and chains. For a moment, Lin Jiwan's mind swirled with confusion. She breathed out slowly and pushed her tangled thoughts aside. There was no hurry. Her body was still weak and damaged. Further planning was pointless until she recovered her health and secured her safety. She relaxed her taut nerves. Physical weariness washed over her. Lulled by the sugar's warmth, she drifted into light sleep. Half asleep, everything dissolved into endless pure white. A vast empty expanse, no sun or moon, no sound. Lin Jiwan stepped forward in bewilderment. Then a thin figure stepped out of the mist. It shared her exact features. The girl looked frail and pale. Years of suppressed grief and exhaustion showed in her eyes, yet she also radiated the lightness of final release. Lin Jiwan stopped short. She understood at once. This was the original Lin Jiwan of this world. The phantom gave a faint, relieved smile, confirming her thought. Moved by mixed feelings, Lin Jiwan spoke in the hollow tone of a dream. "It is you." The phantom nodded gently. "Are you still here?" Lin Jiwan asked earnestly. "Do we share this body? Could you ever come back? Can I return to my own world?" The girl in the white mist shook her head softly. No resentment lingered in her gaze, only quiet acceptance. Her voice drifted like wind. "I am leaving." Those few words settled everything. She would not return. Lin Jiwan would remain trapped in this era, in this body, with no way back to modern-day life. Lin Jiwan was silent for a while. Then she spoke openly. "I have taken your body and your life. Your family starved and tormented you to death. Shall I avenge you? Should I make sure your wrongs are set right? Tell me any wishes you hold." It was the honorable thing to do, out of respect for the original girl. Sadness flickered across the phantom's face before giving way to gentle detachment. She shook her head. "There is no need. Body and life were given to me by my parents. They took that life back. I bear no more anger. I am tired. I am free at last." No more pleasing others, no more sacrificing myself for everyone else. I am going on to my own new existence. Do not carry my hatred for me. Do not struggle on my behalf. Just live your own life well. You have things you must accomplish for yourself. Lin Jiwan frowned slightly. Things I must accomplish for myself? The phantom offered no explanation. Her tone stayed soft but firm. The job I earned, all the private savings I hid away, every bit was won through my own hardship. All of it is yours now. Remember, your life has already been given back to them. From this day forward you owe the Lin family nothing. They deserve not one more thing you possess. Never let them steer your fate again. Do not let them feed off you. Protect yourself. She smiled once more, free of all sorrow. May you know peace and fulfill all your heart's desires. Her figure grew translucent and faded, dissolving completely into the white fog. The dream shattered. Lin Jiwan's eyes flew open. She still seemed to breathe in the strange, clean air of that vision. The original girl was truly gone, letting go of every grudge. She had left behind this broken body, the precious job offer, hidden savings. And that puzzling parting line about tasks awaiting Lin Jiwan. She furrowed her brows. What tasks? She could not guess. Soon she let the question go. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. She possessed an entire spatial storehouse full of modern supplies. In this age of scarcity, she would never starve or freeze. Never be helpless again. By careful steps, she would build a good life for herself. The meaning behind the original girl's words would reveal itself in time. Her fingers closed again around the slip of paper still clutched in her palm. She had nearly forgotten about it. It came from the upright doctor at the health center, the woman who had stood up for her, questioned the Lin family, escorted her to hospital, and secretly given her a lifeline. Lin Jiwan unfolded the neatly folded note. Written in neat, clear handwriting belonged to Dr. Whaley. Dear girl, I am Whaley. I see how you suffer unfair treatment at home. If your family harasses you and you find yourself with nowhere to turn, come find me at this address. I shall help where I can. May you live free from further suffering. Simple words, yet they held rare kindness in these hard times. Dr. Whaley was barely in her 30s. Righteous and warm-hearted. She was the only person who had reached out to support her. Lin Jiwan felt warmth in her chest. She would remember this debt. Once she regained her strength and safety, she would visit to offer proper thanks. She folded the note carefully and stored it safely inside her spatial storage. She was about to draw water and soft pastries from the space to restore her strength when slow, impatient footsteps approached the ward door. It creaked open. It was Lin Jianjun, the eldest Lin's son. He carried a chipped enamel food box. Annoyance showed plainly on his face as he marched over to the bed. 8-year-old Lin Jiao, who had been asleep draped over the bedside, stirred at the noise. She lifted her sleepy head and rubbed her eyes. Eldest brother, you are here, she mumbled softly. Lin Jiwan's clear, emotionless gaze settled calmly on Lin Jianjun. Third sister, you're awake. Lin Jiao brightened instantly. Lin Jiwan glanced toward her gentle young sister and gave a quiet yes. Her reply was mild and neutral, yet to Lin Jianjun it sounded like deliberate cold defiance. His expression darkened at once. He began lecturing her in the patronizing tone of the eldest brother. Third sister, you are far too stubborn. You turned a small matter into this mess and landed yourself in hospital. Do you realize how much this has cost the family, more than 10 yuan? Times are hard for us. I never knew you could be so obstinate and unreasonable. Father and mother worked hard to raise you. Everything they do is for your own good, yet you insist on opposing them. Where will stubbornness get a girl like you? He stood beside the bed pouring out reproach after reproach. Not a trace of genuine concern or remorse crossed his face. To him his sister's near. Death mattered less than money and obedience. Lin Jiwan listened without reaction. Her expression stayed cold. She offered no defense, no answer. Silent, distant, detached. Her complete disregard enraged the already irritable Lin Jianjun. He frowned sharply. What sort of attitude is this? Have you grown arrogant now you are awake? How dare you ignore your own family? He dropped the chipped food box heavily onto the nightstand with a clatter. Enough talk. Mother specially made you this food for me to bring. He resumed his sermon. I am telling you for your own good. Obey father and hand the job over to your brother. Accept an arranged marriage and live as you ought. Stop making trouble or you will only hurt yourself. Since you are awake and seem passably all right, get ready to come home with me. Hospital accommodation and medicine cost too much. Our family cannot afford such waste. Just then a duty nurse doing rounds stepped through the ward doorway. She had overheard his demand for an early discharge. Her expression turned stern. She walked quickly over toward Lin Jianjun. Are you the patient's family member? Lin Jianjun blinked in surprise. I am her eldest brother. Eldest brother? The nurse sounded disapproving. This girl was admitted in critical condition from severe starvation exhaustion. Though she has woken, her bodily functions remain badly impaired. Her internal organs are weakened. She could slip back into shock at any moment. She needs at least 2 more days of hospital observation and intravenous care before she is fit for discharge. How can you demand she go home already? Are you planning to mistreat her again? Lin Jianjun panicked and waved his hands. No. You misunderstand, comrade nurse. I only thought since she woke she was fine. I hate seeing money wasted for no reason. Money wasted? The nurse was angered. Is money worth more than a human life? She survived by sheer luck this time. Another episode might kill her. Your family acts so irresponsibly. She lifted the lid off the enamel food box on the nightstand. Inside was watery coarse, corn porridge. Extremely thin with barely any grains of rice. There was no oil, no nourishment at all. The nurse's frown deepened with pity and anger. This patient is severely run down and needs proper nourishment. And this is what you bring? Not even an egg or extra food. No wonder she nearly starved to death. Lin Jianjun's face flushed with embarrassment. He bowed repeatedly. You are right, comrade nurse. We have not thought this through. Tomorrow I shall bring eggs and better food. We will make sure she gets proper nourishment. Publicly reprimanded and wary of drawing more criticism from hospital staff, he dared not press for discharge any longer. He backed down sullenly. Little Lin Jiao stood quietly nearby, too frightened to speak, watching anxiously over her third sister. Having reprimanded Lin Jianjun, the nurse turned to the pale Lin Jiwan, her tone softening. Do not be afraid. Dr. Wei gave us special instructions to keep an eye on you. Rest here safely. If anyone tries to force you away or bullies you, call for us at once. Lin Jiwan lifted her eyes and nodded gently. Thank you, comrade nurse. It is our duty. The nurse smiled. That thin porridge cannot restore your body. I will fetch you a hospital patient meal from the canteen, with rice soup and soft noodles to build up your strength. Lin Jiwan shook her head apologetically. Please do not go to such trouble. I have little appetite right now. It is no trouble. The nurse was kind-hearted. Dr. Wei told us to look out for you. Your situation tugs at our hearts. Wait here, I shall return shortly. Without waiting for further protest, she hurried toward the hospital canteen. The ward fell quiet once more. Lin Jianjun had been thoroughly reprimanded, his pride badly bruised. Afraid the nurse might return at any moment, he dared not utter another word of lecturing or coercion. He looked at Lin Jiwan, who had her eyes closed and was ignoring him completely. Filled with pent-up frustration yet helpless, he finally spoke reluctantly. Fine, I won't push you anymore. Now that you're awake, I'll take Yao Ao home first. I'll bring you meals before I go to work tomorrow. Stay put in the hospital and don't cause any more trouble. Lin Jiwan did not even lift her eyelids, pretending not to hear him at all. Finding no joy in lingering and fearing another scolding from the nurse, Lin Jianjun did not dare stay longer. He took the docile, confused Lin Jiao by the hand and hurried out of the ward. The door clicked shut and peace finally settled over the room. A few minutes later, the kind-hearted nurse returned quickly carrying a bowl of warm, soft hospital food. Inside were fine rice soup and tender noodle strips, light and gentle on the stomach, perfect for someone recovering from severe illness. Eat while it's hot to put something in your stomach, the nurse said gently as she handed over the bowl. Lin Jiwan lifted her gaze slightly, warmth stirring in her heart. In this unfamiliar era where she had started from rock bottom, kindness from strangers felt especially precious. She reached out to take the bowl, then a thought crossed her mind. She had no money at all. The original host had not carried any private savings, so she could not pay for the meal. Holding the warm enamel bowl between her fingers, Lin Jiwan looked up at the nurse with sincere gratitude in her eyes and spoke softly, earnest yet helpless. I'm truly sorry for putting you to so much trouble. Pretending to reach into her inner pocket, hidden by the loose fabric and quilt, she drew from her personal spatial storage a retro bean paste-colored fabric hair tie. It was exquisitely made with smooth, neat fabric and tidy stitching along the edges. A small matte beige bead adorned its center. Its style was soft and understated, perfectly fitting the aesthetic of the 1970s. Though far more refined than the crude ropes sold at supply and marketing cooperatives, it would strike outsiders as a small private trinket she had saved and treasured. No one would suspect anything unusual. Lin Jiwan held out the pretty new hair tie toward the nurse and explained quietly. I don't have a single cent on me to thank you. This hair tie is new, I have never used it. It is perfectly clean. Please do not refuse it. The nurse waved her hand and smiled, declining politely. Oh no, please don't. There is really no need. Fetching you a meal is nothing at all. I cannot accept gifts from you. Just focus on getting better. Do not give it a second thought. Lin Jiwan did not withdraw her hand. Her fingers lightly gripped the hair tie. Her eyes were sincere, her tone soft and cautious. Please take it. She curved her eyes gently, her voice earnest. My family treats me terribly. No one has ever genuinely cared for me. Today you stood up for me and brought me food. I am truly grateful. Think of it as us becoming friends, all right? Her words, spoken softly, held genuine feeling. The nurse paused. She looked at the pale, weak young woman on the hospital bed with her clean, gentle features. The fabric hair tie was indeed lovely, far nicer than the rough red strings and simple rubber bands worn by most young women in the hospital. It was clearly a carefully kept little item. Meeting Lin Jiwan's clear and sincere gaze, her heart melted. She laughed and nodded readily. Of course. Then I will accept it. She took the hair tie gently. Running her fingertips over the smooth fabric, she liked it more and more, her eyes shining. It is so pretty, even nicer than those sold in the downtown department store. Thank you. Then she added earnestly. I cannot accept this for nothing. I am on duty early tomorrow morning. I will bring you 2 hot-boiled eggs from home to nourish your body. Lin Jiwan shook her head softly and declined. You have already done so much for me, there is really no need. But I insist. The nurse laughed heartily, refusing to yield. We are new friends. I cannot let you lose out. It is settled. The atmosphere turned warm and harmonious, free of the usual distance between patient and medical staff, filled instead with pure friendliness between peers. Seizing the pleasant moment, they briefly introduced themselves. The nurse smiled. My name is Su Xiao. I am 21 and work as a nurse on this ward of the municipal hospital. Su Xiao, Lin Jiwan repeated softly, committing the name to memory. I am Lin Jiwan. I already know your name, Su Xiao nodded, sympathy in her eyes. Rest easy. Call for me anytime you need help. I am on duty on this floor. Just then, a colleague called her from the corridor to report for shift handover. Coming. Su Xiao called back, turning toward Lin Jiwan. I must get back to work. Your intravenous drip has finished. Let me remove the needle before I go. She stepped forward quickly. Her movements were skilled and gentle, disinfecting, peeling off adhesive tape, withdrawing the needle and applying pressure. She barely caused any pain. Afraid Lin Jiwan might press incorrectly, she carefully showed her how and warned her not to strain the site or get it wet. Once everything was in order, she left happily with her new hair tie. The door closed softly, leaving the ward quiet. The patient in the next bed had long fallen asleep. Sounds from the corridor were distant, and no one else remained in the room. Leaning against the head of the bed, Lin Jiwan let out a slow breath. This was a good start. She had made her first friend in this world. Glancing down at the warm hospital porridge on the nightstand, she picked up the bowl and ate slowly in small mouthfuls. The porridge was soft and mild, suited to her fragile stomach. Warmth flowed down her esophagus into her stomach, replenishing her badly depleted body and easing some of the soreness across her limbs. When she finished the bowl, she felt noticeably stronger. Setting down the empty bowl, she touched her neck, back and arms. After days locked in a dark room with little water or food, covered in dust and sweat, and lying in bed all day, her skin felt sticky and uncomfortable. Her skin reeked of sweat, dirt, and disinfectant. She badly needed to clean herself thoroughly. Yet the shared bathroom in this 1970s hospital was crowded. There was no privacy. Public restrooms were filthy and constantly busy, making it far too easy to be seen. People came and went along the ward corridor. Fetching water to wash would risk running into other patients and their families. There was nowhere private. Lin Jiwan rose carefully. She pulled open the ward door a crack and peered out, scanning the corridor in every direction. The long hallway was nearly empty. The nurse's station was far away. Most patients rested in their rooms, and the few people moving about were heading toward the water boiling room at the far end. No one was nearby. It was the perfect chance. Reassured, she stepped lightly out of the ward, keeping to shadowed corners so she could not be seen. Once certain no one could observe her, she focused her mind and vanished from the corridor, entering her private spatial storage. Inside the space, the cold, disinfectant-scented tension of the outside world vanished. She was surrounded by warm, dry air, bright living quarters, and a steady, comfortable temperature, her own safe haven. She had endured imprisonment, starvation, and constant fear. The small bowl of porridge Su Xiao had brought had barely settled her upset stomach. It had not nearly made up for 3 days with almost no food. Now that she relaxed, overwhelming hunger washed over her. Her stomach ached emptily, and she still felt weak all over. For the moment, she pushed aside schemes and grudges. First, she needed to eat and regain her strength. Lin Jiwan walked to the spacious modern kitchen inside her space. She picked up a stainless steel kettle intending to boil water to cook quick noodles. But the instant her fingers touched the kettle, scorching heat burned her skin. Lin Jiwan froze. Her eyes widened in shock. It was boiling hot. The kettle held freshly boiled, steaming water. She stared at the handle, her mind racing. During her earlier tests that afternoon, water in the space had cooled at the normal rate, with no heat-preserving properties. Yet this water was still piping hot, as though it had just finished boiling. She recalled she had left this kettle sitting on the kitchen counter all along. A bold hypothesis formed in her mind. Perhaps the space did not operate uniformly. The living room and bedroom followed normal room temperature rules, while the kitchen possessed special heat locking and preservation abilities. Exciting as the thought was, she would not jump to conclusions. She emptied the kettle, refilled it with cool water, and brought it to a rolling boil once more. As soon as it boiled, she turned off the heat. To test her theory precisely, she took 3 identical clean glass cups. The first she placed in the center of the kitchen counter. The second went to the coffee table in the living room. The third was set on the bedroom nightstand. All 3 held the same amount of water at the same starting temperature. Only their locations differed. With her experiment set up, she turned to satisfying her hunger. From storage cabinets she retrieved fine-dried noodles, eggs, leafy greens, and pre-made soup base. She brought water to a boil and cooked the noodles swiftly. Soft noodles unfurled in the boiling water. She dropped in a golden poached egg, added green vegetables, and poured over fragrant soup stock. A steaming bowl of egg and vegetable noodle soup was ready. Its appetizing aroma filled the kitchen. Sitting in the living room, Lin Jiwan ate slowly and deliberately. Smooth noodles, tender egg, and fresh greens in hot broth warmed her from the inside out. Her weakness faded. Her circulation improved, and color returned to her complexion. At last, she felt grounded. Her stomach full and her body strengthened, her taut nerves relaxed. She experienced a long-lost sense of peace and contentment. Once she had eaten, she checked her 3 test cups. First, the cup in the living room. The glass felt lukewarm, it had cooled completely at a normal rate. Next, the bedroom cup, also cool, all heat gone. Finally, she returned to the kitchen and touched the last glass. Surge of delight swept over her. It was scalding hot. Steam curled gently from the rim. The temperature had not dropped at all, exactly as it had been when poured. Her hypothesis was confirmed. She had uncovered the hidden rule of her spatial storage. It was more than simple heat retention. Within the kitchen area, time stood still. The living room and bedroom functioned normally. Objects cooled and aged as they would in the outside world. Inside the kitchen, however, time was frozen. Whatever state something was in when placed there would remain unchanged indefinitely. Water stayed boiling hot, hot meals stayed warm, fresh fruit and vegetables never wilted, and cooked food never dried out or spoiled. Lin Jiwan's eyes lit up with joy. She was glad she had remodeled long ago, knocking down partition walls to create this large kitchen with floor-to-ceiling cabinets, dual worktops, and plenty of shelf space for storage. In this era without refrigeration, where food spoiled quickly in summer and meals turned cold in an instant in winter, a large kitchen zone with frozen time and perfect preservation was an overpowering advantage. From now on, all her stockpiles, meat, fruit, vegetables, pastries, and prepared meals could be stored in the kitchen section. Everything would remain fresh and intact. Hot food would be ready whenever she wanted it, no reheating needed, no risk of spoilage. Her supplies would be safely preserved indefinitely. Armed with this powerful asset, her future looked far more hopeful. Lin Jiwan exhaled deeply. The gloom and terror of her predicament lifted. A confident, relieved smile tugged at her lips. Calming her thoughts, she picked up the cup of water that had cooled in the living room. Her throat felt slightly dry from the hot noodles, so she drank the whole cup in large gulps. Cool fresh water soothed her throat and insides, washing away much of her fatigue. Most of the weakness from her illness receded, and her spirits lifted. Yet, she still felt a sticky layer of grime across her skin, uncomfortable and clammy. Lin Jiwan frowned. The original host had been a tidy person. This level of dirt seemed odd. She could not stop to puzzle it over, however. The stickiness made rest impossible. She needed to clean herself. She walked into the bathroom inside her space and removed her worn clothes. When she glanced down at her skin, she froze in surprise. A thin layer of brown greasy residue coated her body. It was far more than ordinary sweat or dirt from 3 days without washing. Confused, she did not dwell on it. She was still supposed to be gravely ill in hospital. If she emerged spotlessly clean, others would grow suspicious. She could not bathe thoroughly or scrub hard. A quick rinse to remove surface stickiness would suffice. She turned on the shower. Warm water washed over her. She used body wash for a quick clean, dried off, and combed her hair. She avoided washing her hair entirely. Suddenly clean, fluffy hair would attract unwanted attention. She would tend to it properly once she was safer. After her hasty wash, she felt far more comfortable. She put her old clothes back on, looking plain and ordinary with nothing to arouse suspicion. Finished preparing herself, she drank more room-temperature water from the living room. Her spatial vision let her observe the outside ward and corridor in all directions. She checked carefully. The hallway remained quiet. Patients slept in their rooms. Nobody drew near. The moment was perfect. Her mind stirred, and her figure instantly flashed out of her spatial dimension. She returned to the hospital bed without a sound, lay down gently, closed her eyes, and fell asleep. She slept soundly through the night without dreams. The next day, faint dawn light seeped through the ward window and spilled softly into the room. It was still early, far from the usual time for people to get up. Yet the inpatient building was always bustling. Groups of patients and family caregivers had already gotten up and moved about one after another, fetching water, washing up, and talking in low voices. Bits and pieces of noise gradually roused the entire floor. Lin Jiwan was a light sleeper. Her consciousness stirred, but she kept her eyes shut, lying quietly to restore her energy. Before long, the ward door was pushed open rather roughly. Lin Jianjun had arrived with his younger sister Lin Jiao. In Lin Jianjun's hand was a clean coarse porcelain bowl filled with soft-cooked congee. A whole boiled egg rested on top, paired with a small portion of pickled vegetables. Presumably, after being publicly reprimanded by Su Xiao the day before and losing all face, he feared further reports, doctors' reproach, and damage to the family's reputation as well as his younger brother's prospects. Today, he dared not cut corners anymore. He had honestly added an egg instead of serving thin, watery gruel. He walked over to the bedside. Seeing Lin Jiwan's eyes flicker and her complexion vastly improved from the previous day, no longer deathly pale, but with the color of living flesh returning to her face. He spoke in an impatient, lecturing tone. "Here's your breakfast. I added an egg specially to build up your strength." Right after speaking, he fell into his usual pattern of pressing her, his face showing clear concern over medical expenses and reluctance to spend more money. "You look like you've recovered enough. If you feel all right, go through the discharge procedures quickly. One day in hospital costs more than our whole family's food for several days. Don't keep wasting the family's money here. We cannot afford this sort of drain." Lin Jiwan kept her eyes closed the entire time, not lifting her eyelids even once, completely ignoring his lectures and pressure. She could not be bothered to reply or argue. Ignoring him was the greatest form of disdain she could offer. Lin Jianjun's expression darkened at her lack of response, but restrained his anger. In the hospital, he feared nurses and doctors witnessing an outburst. Beside him, Lin Jiao carried a small cloth school bag. Her young face was neat and clean, her eyes soft and gentle. She hurried to the bedside, looked cautiously at Lin Jiwan, and asked softly with worry. "Third sister, are you feeling better? Do you still hurt?" Lin Jiwan slowly opened her eyes, her gaze calm. She shook her head gently at her seemingly well-behaved younger sister. "Yes, much better. I don't hurt anymore." Hearing her sister's steady, mild voice, Lin Jiao relaxed at once. Carefully, she pulled a fruit candy out of the side pocket of her school bag. Its wrapper was crumpled, clearly something she had saved for a long time without eating it herself. Her small hand clutched the candy tightly, and she placed it into Lin Jiwan's palm. "Third sister, have this candy. It's sweet. It will help you get well faster. I have to go to school. I will come see you after class." A child's affection was pure and heartfelt. Lin Jiwan's heart warmed slightly. She nodded. "All right. Off you go. Be careful on the road." "MHM." Lin Jiao nodded obediently. Seeing his younger sister had given her gift, Lin Jianjun wasted no more time on the cold-shouldered Lin Jiwan. He turned and left hurriedly with Lin Jiao, anxious not to be late for work or waste any extra time or money. Quiet returned to the ward. Lin Jiwan stared down at the tiny fruit candy in her palm, a faint warmth crossing her eyes before she steadied her mind. The congee and egg on the nightstand looked passable, yet still plain and low in fat, far from enough to replenish her severely depleted body. She had only just started to recover and urgently needed proper nutrition. She could not make do with such simple meals. Moreover, her mouth felt dry upon waking and her body still had lingering weakness. She needed to get extra nourishment for herself. Lin Jiwan quietly got out of bed and stepped softly out of the ward. She carefully scanned the corridor left, right, up and down. In the early morning, most people were tidying inside rooms or washing at the water boiling station. The hallway was empty. The perfect private moment. Her mind stirred and her figure vanished into her portable spatial dimension. She had intended to wash her hands and face first, then eat nutrient-rich food stored inside the space. But the instant she raised her hands to rinse them, she froze completely. Shock and confusion flooded her eyes. Something was wrong. Very wrong. She had thoroughly cleaned herself inside the space the previous night, washing away all grime, and had slept soundly. There was no reason for her to be dirty again. Yet right now, a thin layer of the same brown sticky grime had appeared on the surface of her skin. It was faint, barely visible, but felt slippery and gritty to the touch. Lin Jiwan's heart pounded. She realized in an instant that her rapid physical recovery and surge in energy the day before had not come from intravenous drips or a single bowl of noodles. The doctor had clearly stated that with severe internal organ deficiency and starvation-related exhaustion, she would require at least 1 or 2 days of continuous fluid treatment to slowly regain her senses. Such a dramatic overnight improvement in spirit and physical strength was medically impossible. But after drinking water from the space kitchen and eating noodles cooked there, her recovery had been unreasonably fast. Back then, she had only noticed the water tasted fresh and pleasant. Now she recalled it was no ordinary tap or well water. It carried an extremely subtle, almost undetectable sweet coolness far beyond any water from the outside world. A bold, thrilling thought exploded in her mind. Spirit spring water. The transmigrator's classic treasure. The running water in her space's kitchen was spirit spring water, capable of strengthening the body, rebuilding vitality, and repairing physical depletion. That explained its ability to swiftly make up for her bodily losses, restore stamina, nourish her internal organs, and ease her frailty. That brown grime seeping out of her skin was not ordinary dirt. It was years' worth of cold dampness, bodily stagnant toxins, and metabolic waste built up from long-term malnutrition in the original host's body. The spirit spring water was cleansing her system, improving her constitution, and rebuilding her physical foundation. Lin Jiwan's heart hammered with uncontainable joy and excitement. To test her theory, she hurried to the kitchen and poured herself a cup of the running water there. She sipped it slowly and carefully. Cool sweetness spread across her tongue. As it slid down her throat, a gentle warmth flowed through every limb and meridian. The faint emptiness and soreness she had felt upon waking vanished immediately. This was no false feeling of fullness from water alone. It was genuine replenished qi and blood, restored stamina, and the tangible comfort of nourished internal organs. There was no doubt it was spirit spring water. It could expel toxins, replenish vitality, restore physical strength, fortify the body, and prolong life. She forced herself to calm down and went to test the water in the bathroom. She collected some bathroom wash water, held it in her mouth, and tasted it thoroughly. It tasted flat and ordinary, no sweetness, no warmth, no nourishing effect. It was just clean plain water. Her conclusion was definitive. Only the standing running water from the space kitchen held spiritual energy to restore and strengthen the body. The bathroom tap merely supplied ordinary, purified water. Lin Jiwan prepared to wash her face and hands. She held her hands under the stream and soon noticed another strange effect. A faint mild warmth seeped through her skin and drifted gently along her meridians. The original host's hands were rough and dry from constant housework, covered in thin calluses, dull yellow, bearing all the marks of chronic poor nutrition. She studied her hands. They seemed marginally fairer, though she wondered if it was her imagination. She quickly plugged the sink drain to fill it with water for further observation. She submerged her hands inside for merely dozens of seconds. When she lifted them, her eyes widened. Her once dry, coarse palms had visibly grown soft and smooth. Her dull skin tone brightened. The brown surface grime dissolved and faded in the warm water. Where the water had touched, her skin felt soothingly warm. A steady, subtle heat lingered, and even her grip seemed stronger. She had fully worked out the dual functions of her space's two water sources. Space kitchen water, spirit spring water. Effects internal use, replenish qi and blood, remedy physical depletion, expel toxins and stagnation, rapidly restore stamina, repair internal organ damage, prolong lifespan with long-term consumption. Fundamentally rebuild the physique and cleanse the body. Space bathroom water, nourishing skin water. Effects external use, soften and brighten skin, reduce dullness, refine skin texture, relax muscles and tendons, relieve fatigue, boost physical strength, gradually improve skin condition and bodily capacity. Two extraordinary sets of powers. Standing inside her bright spatial dimension, Lin Jiwan felt everything fall into place. Her future had become clear. In her previous life, she had practiced self-defense and kickboxing for several years and possessed solid technical foundations. But this borrowed body had been worn down by mistreatment and malnutrition. She had skill yet no physical strength to back it up. That was no longer the case. With spirit spring water to cleanse and rebuild her body, and bathroom water to nourish her skin and build her strength, her physical fitness would improve rapidly. Her constitution would surpass ordinary people, her power would steadily grow, and her combat skills would return to their peak. She now had the confidence to choose to go to the countryside. She need no longer fear hard rural labor or bullying from others. She did not have to remain trapped in the draining Lin family in Beijing. A brilliant backup plan occurred to her. She had long overlooked the original host's second elder brother, who served in the army far away. If she applied to be sent to a youth resettlement site near her second brother's military camp, she would be far from the Lin family in the Beijing suburbs. Her elder brother could offer nearby protection. She could completely escape her toxic birth family and their endless exploitation, while still having a reliable safety net. It was the optimal solution. Her prospects looked bright. Suppressing her surging excitement, Lin Jiwan thoroughly washed her hands and face with the bathroom water to clear all toxin residue from her skin. She felt fresh and revitalized. After checking there was nothing out of the ordinary, she adjusted her clothes, focused her mind, and returned to the hospital ward. She had barely lain down when light, familiar footsteps approached the door. Su Xiao walked in holding a clean enamel plate, a gentle smile on her face. Seeing Lin Jiwan sitting upright on the bed, she joked lightly. "Jiwan, I came looking for you just now and you weren't in the ward. Where did you go?" Lin Jiwan met her gaze with a soft smile and replied naturally. "I just went out to wash up in the corridor." "No wonder." Su Xiao hurried over and handed over the enamel plate, genuine joy in her eyes. "Hurry and eat while it's hot. I promised I would bring you breakfast today." The plate held 2 warm boiled eggs, a thick soft egg pancake, and a small bottle of warm milk. In 1969, when supplies and food coupons were scarce, eggs, pancakes, and milk were fine nourishments most ordinary families could never afford. Lin Jiwan stared in surprise. "Why so much? This is too much trouble for you." Su Xiao laughed heartily and waved her hand dismissively. "It's no trouble at all. I loved that hair tie you gave me yesterday. It's so pretty. I was the one who got the better end of that exchange. This breakfast is nothing. Eat quickly." She observed Lin Jiwan's improved complexion with relief. "You look so much better today. Your face isn't pale anymore and your eyes are bright. You've really bounced back well enough to walk and wash by yourself. I need to get back to my shift so I won't stay and chat. Rest well and call for help if you need anything." Lin Jiwan's heart warmed. She nodded sincerely. "Thank you. Go on to work. Don't let your duties wait." Su Xiao smiled and left with brisk steps. Sunlight streamed warmly into the ward. Lin Jiwan slowly finished the eggs, egg pancake and warm milk. Comfort spread through her whole body. She picked up the empty enamel plate, washed it at the water boiling station on the floor, and walked back toward the ward. Turning the corridor corner and stepping through the ward door, she halted in her tracks. A young woman sat by her hospital bed, leaning forward slightly, brows tightly furrowed, restless and anxious. She kept glancing toward the doorway as though she had been waiting for a long time. Their eyes met. The girl's face lit up instantly. She stood and hurried toward Lin Jiwan, her voice thick with undisguised alarm and concern. Xiaowan. Xiaowan. How are you? Memories belonging to the original host flashed through Lin Jiwan's mind. This was Shen Wanqing, the original host's closest, most trusted best friend from 3 years of high school. Shen Wanqing's father was director of the Beijing textile factory, and her mother held a supervisory position there. Her family was well off. Her older brother and older sister both held stable formal jobs. Through her family connections, Shen Wanqing had obtained confidential advance news about factory recruitment and had immediately come to invite the original host to prepare for the assessment together. Lin Jiwan pushed aside the strangeness of inhabiting another person's memories. She mimicked the original host's usual gentle demeanor and spoke softly. Wanqing, what brings you here? I didn't expect you to find this hospital. Shen Wanqing grasped her arm, her fingertips trembling with tension. She spoke urgently. I hadn't heard from you for days. We were supposed to go shopping for work supplies. I went to your house to look for you. Neighbors told me you suddenly fainted yesterday and your family rushed you to hospital. It sounded terrible. I stopped your mother to get details, found out which hospital this was, and came straight over without delay. She looked Lin Jiwan over from head to toe, her heart aching, her frown deepening. How could you end up in such a state? What on earth happened? Shen Wanqing helped her sit down on the edge of the bed. Lin Jiwan weighed her options silently. If she wanted to properly handle the job offer and evade the Lin family's constant schemes, Shen Wanqing's help would be invaluable. She could not keep this from her. After a short pause, she told Shen Wanqing everything about her family's plans. Shen Wanqing listened, initially maintaining composure. As Lin Jiwan spoke, color drained from her face. By the end her chest rose and fell heavily in shock and anger. She had grown up in a loving household, cherished by her parents and supported by her siblings. She could scarcely imagine blood relatives behaving so cruelly. Her own family had worked hard for a precious opportunity, yet instead of caring for her, they plotted to exploit her benefits for their son. Like leeches, they clung to her relentlessly. Shen Wanqing's voice shook. How can this be? How can parents treat their own child like this? Seeing how indignant her friend was, Lin Jiwan sighed softly. She leaned closer and whispered into Shen Wanqing's ear. Wanqing, I have made up my mind. I intend to sell my job quota. You know many people. Could you help me find a safe, proper way to transfer it quietly? Shen Wanqing's eyes widened in shock. She almost raised her voice. What? You want to sell the Joe? Lin Jiwan reacted quickly and placed a light hand over her mouth. Shoo, keep your voice down. Lin Jiwan's expression was cautious and her tone lowered. This matter is strictly regulated. Talking about it openly will only bring trouble. Shen Wanqing regained her senses. She glanced around nervously and fell silent, nodding. Lin Jiwan removed her hand and continued quietly. I have truly decided this. I will explain everything later. Right now, please help me look for reliable contacts so the transfer can go smoothly. Shen Wanqing stared at her. She remembered how delighted the original host had been upon hearing about the recruitment, looking forward to factory work. To voluntarily give up such a hard-won position showed how much suffering she had endured at home. She knew Lin Jiwan was level-headed and would not make such a choice on impulse. This must have been thoroughly thought through. After a long moment, Shen Wanqing nodded slowly. I understand. This carries considerable risk. I cannot ask random people. I will go ask my parents at the factory and see if there is a secure approach. Above all, do not mention this to outsiders. I know, Lin Jiwan said, feeling a measure of relief. They could not converse for too long about such sensitive business. Shen Wanqing stopped discussing the subject and unslung her canvas bag. She took out a tin fruit can and a clean can opener. She pried the can open. Sweet fruity aroma filled the air. She skewered a piece of yellow peach and held it out to Lin Jiwan, eyes full of sympathy. Let us set aside these worries for now. Eat some canned fruit to build up your strength. My heart aches thinking about you being starved into hospital. You haven't had decent food these days. You need more nourishment. Lin Jiwan looked at her sincerely concerned friend, warmth stirring inside her. She smiled faintly and ate the fruit. Sweet juice spread across her tongue, easing the heavy mood in the room. Shen Wanqing sat beside her, feeding her fruit now and then while speaking in a low voice. Rest well in hospital and watch out for your family. I will come back as soon as I get news. Whatever happens, I am on your side. A nurse pushed a treatment cart into the ward, preparing intravenous equipment. She inserted the needle for Lin Jiwan's infusion and checked her condition. You are recovering very well. Once this drip finishes, you won't need continuous fluid treatment. Stay one more night for observation. If nothing troubles you, you can be discharged tomorrow. Lin Jiwan nodded. Glancing toward Shen Wanqing, she took the chance to speak. Wanqing, I am fine here. You should head back now. Time is pressing. My family keeps pushing me. Every delay brings more complications and trouble. Please hurry as much as you can. Shen Wanqing understood how urgent the situation was. She stood up at once and clutched her canvas bag. Don't worry. I will not waste a single minute. I am going straight back to the textile factory to consult my mother about possible connections. I will come tell you the moment I hear anything. Thank you for all your hard work. Lin Jiwan's eyes brimmed with sincere gratitude. The two exchanged a few more brief reminders, then Shen Wanqing hurried out of the hospital ward. The intravenous drip dripped slowly, and noon soon arrived. Many family members accompanying patients in the ward had gone out to get meals, and the room gradually grew quiet. Lin Jiwan was turning things over in her mind, planning to slip into her space when no one was around to prepare lunch. When rapid footsteps echoed outside the ward door, she looked up and saw Shen Wanqing rushing inside. Sweat beaded her forehead, her cheeks were flushed from running, and her eyes shone brightly. It was clear matters had been fully settled and there was good news. Before Shen Wanqing could speak, Lin Jiwan quickly rose and walked to her side, leaning slightly close to her ear and lowering her voice. Any leads? Shen Wanqing nodded hard, barely able to contain her joy as she whispered back. Yes, everything is very certain. It's mealtime already. Don't talk too much here. Come have lunch at my place. Lin Jiwan hesitated for a moment and gently declined. That's too much trouble. I'd be imposing on your family. It's no trouble at all. Shen Wanqing grabbed her wrist firmly and smiled with conviction. I rode my bicycle here. The compound isn't far from this hospital. My mom told me specifically to bring you over right away. We already have guests waiting at home. The hint was plain, and Lin Jiwan understood instantly. The buyer had been arranged to meet at the Shen family home. He Huilan had deliberately kept people waiting, meaning every detail had been prepared. She stopped hesitating, smoothed her clothing, casually told the duty nurse she was going out for a meal and would return shortly. Then followed Shen Wanqing quickly out of the ward. Shen Wanqing rode her sturdy 28-inch bicycle steadily. Lin Jiwan sat sideways on the rear seat, hands lightly gripping the edge of the saddle. They rode through the tidy factory district streets. 10 minutes later, they reached the Cadre family compound belonging to Beijing Textile Mill. Unlike the cramped, messy worker housing quarters, this compound featured neat blue, brick tile houses with tall, uniform walls. Each household occupied its own separate courtyard for privacy. Only mid-level and above cadres of the mill were eligible to live here. Shen Wanqing's father was the mill's chief director, and He Huilan headed the mill office. Their family had been assigned a complete private courtyard. There were 3 main rooms plus small east and west side chambers. A grape trellis stood in the yard, the ground was swept spotlessly clean. And the place was quiet and private, perfect for discussing sensitive, confidential matters. They parked the bicycle and stepped into the courtyard. He Huilan immediately came out of the house to greet them. Dressed in a neat cadre work uniform, she carried a composed and capable bearing. Her eyes were gentle, and she looked at Lin Jiwan with genuine sympathy. Jiwan, come in and sit. You look so thin. You've really been through a great deal. Lin Jiwan nodded politely. And he. Stepping inside, she saw a father and daughter already seated in the living room, waiting for them. The middle, aged man was Chen Shiyi, a senior long-term employee at the neighboring state-run machinery factory. He and He Huilan were old, trusted acquaintances who knew each other's characters well. His family was fairly well off with steady savings. Though not wealthy, he could afford to spend a substantial sum to secure a better future for his daughter. Beside him stood his daughter Chen Xini, around the same age as Shen Wanqing. She had clean, sweet features and a gentle, docile temperament, having been carefully sheltered growing up. Though not timid or ill at ease, her eyes held obvious nervousness and anticipation. He Huilan softly closed the door, shutting out all noise from the yard. Once the room was fully private, she got straight to the point. She looked toward Lin Jiwan and asked solemnly, "Jiwan, let me ask you one last time. Are you absolutely certain you want to give up this administrative clerk position at the textile mill? Once the formalities are completed, there will be no going back." Lin Jiwan met her gaze calmly and resolutely, without the slightest trace of indecision. "Auntie, I have thought this through completely. I will have no regrets." Receiving her firm answer, He Huilan turned to Chen Shui and spoke frankly, laying out the whole situation. "Lao Chen, I have kept your request for a work position in mind all this time. To be honest, I had no way to help you before. Regulations are being strictly enforced this year. Higher authorities are cracking down hard on job replacement schemes and unauthorized position transfers. Every loophole has been sealed shut. I could not pull any strings and had to turn you down." Chen Shui nodded repeatedly, his expression a mix of helplessness and earnestness. I know. I understood how difficult that was for you at the time. I have approached every acquaintance, factory leader, and neighborhood official I could find. I exhausted every connection I had, yet there was not a single opening." He let out a long sigh, filled with relief mixed with apprehension. "The deadline for registering for rural re-education is drawing near, and I lie awake night after night. I only have this one daughter. She has been raised gently and could never endure exposure to the elements and hard farm labor in the countryside. I would grasp at any chance I could for her sake." He Huilan picked up the conversation with a smile. "It is simply good fortune for Cindy. Just today, Jiwan came to see me. She says her health has suffered badly, and she cannot cope with the demands of factory work. So she intends to voluntarily give up her offered position. The moment I heard this, I thought of your family. What is more, this arrangement carries practically zero risk. 5 clerk positions were open in this recruitment round. Jiwan scored second place and was firmly on the hiring list. Cindy placed 6th, just narrowly missing a spot. Now that Jiwan is voluntarily relinquishing her position, the vacancy will pass down the official ranking. Cindy can fill it legitimately through normal waiting list procedure. Everything follows official examination rules. It is fully legal and compliant, with no risk of disciplinary repercussions. It is purely a fortunate coincidence for both families. One party truly wishes to step down, the other truly needs the opening. This perfectly solves your urgent problem." Delight spread across Chen Shui's face. He thanked her profusely and sincerely. "Thank you so much, Director He. You have done our family an enormous favor. If Cindy secures this clerk post and avoids being sent to the countryside, our whole family will always remember your kindness." Beside him, Chen Cindy quickly spoke up in her soft, sweet voice with sincere respect. "Thank you, Auntie, and thank you, Comrade Lin. I will value this job greatly, work diligently, and never waste this opportunity." With all background facts laid out, everyone present understood the full picture. Acting as impartial intermediary, He Huilan began negotiating the payment with clear-headed fairness. "Since both sides are acquaintances and acting in good faith, I will mediate and set a fair price matching current market standards. Ordinary assembly, line women's posts go for less, but this administrative clerk role is different. You will not work constantly on the shop floor or do night shifts. The job consists of office, base book, keeping, statistics, and light supervision. It is respectable and relatively easy, a preliminary cadre position with prospects for evaluation, promotion, and formal confirmation. Its value is incomparably higher. A fair lump, sum price, 1,000 yuan. Chen Shui knew perfectly well this position was well worth the price under the current strict policies. Though the sum pained him, he made no attempt to bargain. However, despite bringing money with him, he had not managed to gather the full 1,000 yuan in cash. He spoke honestly. "Director He, Comrade Lin, I fully accept this price and will not haggle. But I did not bring the full 1,000 yuan in cash today when I rushed out." After a moment's thought, he proposed a practical arrangement beneficial to both sides. "I have 850 yuan in brand, new banknotes on me in hard cash. For the remaining 150 yuan, instead of more cash, I will pay entirely in various ration coupons. Cloth coupons, cotton coupons, national grain coupons, sugar coupons, soap coupons, kerosene coupons, all the most sought after, practical hard 2. Get vouchers available on the market. No inferior or useless items, I give you my word. Lin Jiwan's heart stirred. She understood immediately. For her present circumstances, ration coupons were far more valuable than extra cash. If she were to go to the countryside later, money alone would not buy many necessities. These nationally valid coupons would amount to genuine survival resources. She nodded simply and decisively. Agreed. 850 yuan in cash, plus ration coupons worth 150 yuan. The deal was fully settled without bickering or hesitation. He Huilan relaxed and smiled to smooth the atmosphere. Excellent, this works for everyone. Now that the important matter is settled, let us eat first. Policies are tight right now, we cannot afford delays. Immediately after lunch, we go to the factory to finish all formalities in one go. No more sensitive topics were discussed. Everyone sat down for the meal. With important business weighing on their minds, they ate quickly. Once lunch was over, the group set off at once for the state-run textile mill's office building. With He Huilan, head of the mill office, overseeing the whole process as guarantor, everything proceeded remarkably smoothly. As previously agreed, Lin Jiwan submitted a written voluntary resignation statement. She stated that, having just recovered from serious illness, her body was weak and she could not perform the duties of the position, requesting formal cancellation of her recruitment spot. The personnel department reviewed her submission, leaders signed off, and the record was officially closed. The reasoning was reasonable, the procedure proper, and all documentation flawless. Next, following the official ranking from the recruitment examination, 6th place Chun Sini filled the vacant position. Registration, filing, and entry onto the official employment roster were completed, securing her the clerk post. Every step followed standard recruitment adjustment protocol. No fault could be found, and no outsider could raise legitimate objections. All formalities were finally completed. Chen Shuyi solemnly handed over 850 yuan in crisp banknotes together with a thick stack of valuable ration coupons to Lin Jiwan. He gave his solemn promise that today's dealings would never be spoken of to anyone, then left with his overjoyed daughter after repeated thanks. Quiet returned to the office. Only He Huilan, Shen Wanqing, and Lin Jiwan remained. Seated behind the desk, He Huilan rested her fingertips on the table surface. She looked at the young girl who had just completed the transfer of such a precious job offer. Her expression calm and composed. He Huilan felt both pity and admiration. She spoke slowly and seriously, raising the most critical question. Jiwan, Wanqing has told me everything about your family situation and your plans. Let me ask you plainly now. You have given up this invaluable secure state-owned factory post. What exactly do you intend to do next? You know how strictly policies are being enforced in the city these 2 years. Under current rules, urban youth of suitable age without formal employment or work, unit affiliation will almost certainly be mobilized to go to the countryside for re-education. Neighborhood committees conduct regular household surveys and registrations. There is no way to avoid it. You have voluntarily given up your only chance to stay in the city. How will you chart your path forward? Her question was direct and touched upon the core difficulty. Shen Wanqing looked over at once, her eyes full of worry, lips pressed tightly together, her heart heavy with anxiety. She knew all too well what being sent to the countryside entailed. Lin Jiwan lowered her eyes and gave a faint smile, sober and unburdened, showing none of the panic or regret others expected. And I see everything very clearly. This job was never truly mine to keep. You can probably guess most of what my family is like. This coveted, promising clerk post that others would fight tooth and nail for meant nothing more to my family than a stepping stone they could seize to benefit my brothers. Even if I clung desperately to it, I would never truly keep it. Sooner or later they would pressure and manipulate me into surrendering it. I would end up with nothing, worn out for nothing, still forced out of the city to the countryside with empty hands. Rather than being drained of all value and cornered with no options, I choose to take initiative myself. Lin Jiwan lifted her gaze, her eyes clear and resolute. I convert the job into tangible cash and ration coupons. Money and vouchers held in my own hands are my real safety net. As for going to the countryside, I have long thought it all through. Staying in Beijing means unloving parents and no one to rely on, constantly at the mercy of others. For the sake of my elder and third brother's prospects, my family would sooner or later force me into an arranged marriage to trade my whole life's happiness for their advancement. Rather than being trapped in that mire, powerless to resist, I choose to step away of my own free will. Life in the countryside will be hard, but it will be a path I choose. I can take charge of my own fate. Silence fell over the room. He Huilan stared at the 18-year-old girl. Despite her youth, Lin Jiwan saw human relationships and the cruel reality of her birth family with startling clarity. She felt deep sympathy for her. Shin Wanqing's chest ached and her eyes grew moist. She spoke urgently with unconcealed concern. But Jiwan, the countryside holds real dangers. I heard neighborhood women talking not long ago. Many young city girls sent there alone face isolation, unfair treatment, and hardship. Bad things can happen, and it is hard to defend yourself. How can we feel at ease seeing you go off alone to an unfamiliar rural area? Lin Jiwan felt warmth welling inside her at her friend's genuine worry and reassured them gently. I have weighed every risk carefully. This is not reckless impulse, nor am I rushing blindly into danger. I do have fallback options and support. Her tone was firm as she stated her main source of confidence. My second elder brother Lin Jianfeng serves in the military. Half a year ago his unit was redeployed to the garrison command in Shaanxi province. I have studied current rural education policies thoroughly. If you wait passively for neighborhood assignment, you are sent randomly, most likely to remote, impoverished mountain villages. But youth who volunteer for rural education get priority when choosing where to be sent. One may apply for placement near a specific locality. I plan to sign up voluntarily and apply to be sent to a commune close to my brother's military garrison. With my biological brother stationed nearby, the prestige of the military unit carries weight. The commune, production brigade, and local villagers will show me due respect. With his protection, few would dare mistreat or take advantage of me. My personal safety will be largely assured. After hearing this thorough, thought-out plan, much of He Huilan's anxiety lifted. She sighed in relief and nodded approvingly. So you already mapped everything out. No wonder you are so calm and self-assured. This is indeed the wisest course open to you right now. Having a close family member serving locally in the military makes an enormous difference. People dare not scheme against you or create difficulties for you. Life in the countryside is completely different for those with backing compared to those without. She readily offered to use her connections. Since you have set your heart on being sent near your brother's garrison, I will help arrange this for you. I have contacts at the Municipal Youth Education Office and the Neighborhood Placement Bureau. My sister-in-law Shin Hui works in a core position at the Youth Education Office, handling registration, location assignments, and batch deployments for educated youth. When you go to sign up, state your preferred location in Shaanxi and mention my name. She knows how to handle these matters properly. She will arrange your placement according to your wishes and will not send you off to some harsh remote place. Beside her, Shin Wanqing's eyes lit up. She raised her hand eagerly. I know exactly where Aunt Shin's office is. I am very close to her. Jiwan, I will go with you to the Youth Education Office in person. I will accompany you through every step of filling out forms and registration. Nothing will go wrong. I promise everything will go smoothly. Lin Jiwan was taken aback. Warmth surged powerfully within her. When she first arrived in this world, she had prepared herself to fight alone, proceeding cautiously and building every advantage from scratch. She had even planned to spend money and give gifts to slowly build connections. She had never expected the Shin mother and daughter pair. They never pried into her family's ugly secrets or dug into her private troubles. They simply pitied her circumstances and genuinely wanted to shelter her, offering help wholeheartedly. Throughout the hard days of the original host's life, Shin Wanqing had been her single ray of light. Her friendship was sincere, warm, and unselfish. She had never distanced herself because of the original host's difficult family background and mistreatment. Now that Lin Jiwan inhabited this body, that precious genuine care still surrounded her. Soft warmth glistened in Lin Jiwan's eyes as she spoke earnestly. Thank you so much, Aunt He. And thank you, Wanqing. I appreciate you going to so much trouble for me. Why are you thanking me? Shin Wanqing linked her arm through hers, sadness evident in her voice. We are best friends. Throughout high school you tutored me in so many subjects and always looked out for me. Of course I would do this for you. I wish you could stay here in Beijing with me. But thinking about you going far away to the countryside soon, knowing we cannot meet or talk whenever we want makes me sad. I do not know when you will get home, leave to come back to town. It will be hard for us to see each other. Sadness clouded the young girl's features, heavy with the pain of approaching separation. Lin Jiwan's heart softened. She patted the back of her hand gently to comfort her. Do not grieve. This is not a permanent goodbye. Educated youth in the countryside are entitled to official home leave. Once I settle down there and accrue my leave days, I will come back to Beijing to visit you at the earliest chance. We can keep writing letters to each other year after year. Our bond will not fade or grow distant. All right. We must write to each other often. I'll send you a letter every single month. Shen Wanqing nodded hard, barely holding back the sorrow welling up in her heart. All plans for the future and fallback arrangements had been finalized, and her worries were finally laid to rest. Lin Jiwan looked up at He Huilan and stood up politely. Auntie, I won't take up any more of your work time. I'd like to head out now to make a long-distance call at the post office, so I can ask my second brother for the exact address of his station and the name of his commune and production brigade. Only with precise location details can I fill in my countryside assignment application without mistakes. At once He Huilan waved her hand, easygoing and generous. No need to trudge all the way to the post office, what a hassle. There's an official landline right here in my office, a dedicated line with stable signals and no queues. You may use it right here. Lin Jiwan hastily declined, looking somewhat flustered. I shouldn't do that, Auntie. This is an official work phone. Using it for personal long-distance calls would be improper and would get you into trouble. It's quite all right. He Huilan smiled and stood up, thoughtfully leaving the two girls some privacy, her tone gentle. It's only 1 or 2 calls, it won't matter. No one will make an issue of it. Feel free to make your call, don't be ill at ease. I'm going downstairs to attend to work. Take all the time you need. With that, she quietly closed the office door and left, thoughtfully giving them complete privacy. Silence settled over the room. No longer refusing, Lin Jiwan walked over to the old-fashioned black telephone. She calmed herself and sifted through the fragmented, long-buried memories of the original host. Half a year earlier, when her second brother Lin Jianfeng had been transferred to the Jin Provincial Garrison Military Region, he had sent home a letter telling the family he was safe. Enclosed in the letter was the unit's temporary telephone number, and he had briefly mentioned that his station was somewhere around Finqing in Jin Province. Yet the original host had paid little attention back then. She only vaguely recalled the area code and military unit designation. She remembered almost nothing about the specific village or commune. This phone call was meant to lock down the exact resettlement location. Only with an accurate address could she correctly submit her application for rusticated youth assignment, settle down close to her second brother, and have his protection. Lin Jiwan took a deep breath, her fingers resting on the old rotary dial. She slowly dialed the number buried deep in her memories. The phone rang several times before it was answered. A crisp, formal male voice of a military service member came over the receiver, clear and resolute. Hello, this is the station office of the Jin Provincial Garrison Military Region. Whom would you like to speak to? Lin Jiwan steadied her voice and spoke clearly. Comrade, please could you connect me to Company Commander Lin Jianfeng of the 7th Company, 3rd Battalion, Garrison Regiment. I am his younger sister. Thank you very much. There was a short pause on the other end as the soldier quickly checked the duty roster. Soon he replied. Company Commander Lin is on site in the camp today. He has no field duties or training exercises. Please wait 10 minutes, then call back. I will notify him to come to the phone. Very well, thank you, comrade. Lin Jiwan thanked him politely and hung up. The 10-minute wait was not long, yet it gave her time to sort out all her subsequent plans. Seeing that the call would take a moment, Shen Wanqing sat down beside her and began earnestly going over everything Lin Jiwan would need to take to the countryside. Every word brimming with genuine, careful concern. Xiaowan, listen carefully and remember everything I'm about to tell you. The journey to the countryside is long, supplies are scarce, and most goods can only be bought with ration coupons. Even money won't get you many hard-to-find items, so you have to prepare everything well in advance. Thick quilts, thin quilts, thermal underwear, sturdy outer clothes, rubber-soled shoes and cloth shoes, common medicines for headaches, fevers, stomach troubles, and medicines for bruises and sprains. Get all of these ready ahead of time. Soap, kerosene, matches, sewing supplies, cloth, and other daily necessities are hardest to come by in the countryside. Bring as many as you possibly can. But don't take too much luggage all at once. Traveling is tiring, riding crowded trains with heavy bags is exhausting, and things can easily get damaged or lost. You can mail extra clothes, thick seldom-used quilts, and reserve belongings ahead of time, so you can travel light. Always carry dry food, water, and candy on the road. Trains are slow, and you might not be able to buy food along the way. Don't go hungry. When you arrive at the educated youth site, get along well with the other youth, but never let anyone push you around. If anyone bullies or takes advantage of you, do not put up with it. Go find your second brother for support. The young girl rambled on, listing every possible risk, every supply to pack, travel precautions, and ways to protect herself after arrival. Every word was sincere, full of heartfelt worry. Lin Jiwan listened quietly, her heart swelling with warmth. When her own blood relatives kept scheming against her, it was such a precious thing to have someone care for her wholeheartedly. She looked over at Xin Wanqing, who was speaking so earnestly, warmth shining in her eyes. A thought occurred to her. Several years still remained before the National College entrance examination would be reinstated. It seemed far away, yet time would pass quickly. Opportunities belonged to those who were prepared. Whether she settled in the countryside or bided her time for future chances, studying was the most reliable path for ordinary people to change their fate. She did not want her own knowledge to go to waste, nor did she want her best friend from the original host's life to be limited by the times, lose her vision, and let her talents fade away. Lin Jiwan spoke softly, her tone gentle yet meaningful, offering subtle advice. Wanqing, I want to tell you something from my heart. The college entrance examination has been suspended right now. Everyone says studying is useless, that books cannot feed you. But I truly believe that knowledge and what you learn will never be wasted. If you stop reading, writing, and using your mind for too long, you will grow lazy and lose your edge. Times keep changing, and no one knows what the future holds. Keep learning, keep reviewing, keep building on what you know. It can do no harm. No matter where we end up or what hardships we face, let's never abandon our books or let our knowledge fade, all right? Xin Wanqing stared for a moment, then nodded vigorously in wholehearted agreement. Xiaowan, you're absolutely right. I don't want to give up either. Even without the college entrance exam now, there might still be worker peasant soldier universities and other selection opportunities later. I will keep reading, reviewing my lessons, and practicing my writing. I won't let what I've learned slip away. Let's keep going together. They smiled at one another, silently sealing their promise. 10 minutes passed. Lin Jiwan picked up the telephone again and dialed the number. This time, the connection was instant. A deep, steady male voice came through the receiver, carrying the crisp directness of a soldier, tempered with tentative tenderness. Hello, is that Xiaowan? It was her second brother, Lin Jianfeng. Some echo of this body's old feelings stirred within her at hearing that familiar form of address. Lin Jiwan steadied her complicated emotions and replied softly, her voice calm and gentle. Second brother, it's me, Xiaowan. Relief washed over Lin Jianfeng on the other end of the line, and amusement colored his tone as he teased lightly. What made you call your second brother all of a sudden? Missing me? Yet his tone shifted in an instant. He noticed how quiet and composed his third sister sounded. Gone was her usual liveliness. There was a faint undercurrent of weariness and distance in her voice. Alarm flared in Lin Jianfeng's chest, and his tone turned sharp and serious. Xiaowan, something is wrong with your voice. Has something happened? Has there been trouble at home? Has someone hurt you? Lin Jiwan avoided beating around the bush and got straight to the point. Second brother, I'm calling to confirm exactly where you are stationed in Jin province. Please tell me the precise name of the commune and production brigade. Lin Jianfeng was caught off guard and gave her the exact location truthfully. I am stationed around Shiha Production Brigade, Ping'an Commune, Fanqing County, Jin Province, with the Garrison Battalion. Growing more confused, he frowned and pressed urgently. Why are you asking for this all of a sudden? What is going on, Xiaowan? Lin Jiwan took a deep breath and told him plainly. Second brother, I am going to be sent to the countryside as a rusticated youth. Those few words brought total silence on the other end of the line. Lin Jianfeng was utterly stunned, his voice thick with disbelief. The countryside? How has this come about? Not long ago you wrote saying you had passed the recruitment exam for a clerk position at the state-owned textile mill. That was a secure, official city job. Countless people fought for that position. How could you give it up and go to the countryside? Stationed far from home, he thought constantly of his third sister, to whom he had always been close. He knew how hard she had studied to earn that job. How could such a hard-won future vanish overnight? Lin Jiwan chose not to go into the sordid household intrigues over the expensive long-distance call. For one thing, telephone costs were high. For another, calls were not entirely private, and family conflicts ought not to be discussed over the phone. Besides, the whole tangled story could not be summed up in a few sentences. She gave him a concise, firm answer. Second brother, the reasons are complicated and cannot be explained over the phone. I will tell you everything in person once I arrive in Jean Province. What is certain is that I am going to the countryside. Being assigned randomly would mean unknown destinations and unknown living conditions. I cannot take that risk. I intend to apply voluntarily for Shiha Production Brigade under Ping'an Commune, the place closest to your station. With you nearby, I will be safer and more secure. Lin Jianfeng understood at once. Normally so mild-mannered, his sister would never give up such a valuable city post and head for the hardships of rural life unless she had been cornered and wronged. Rage and pity welled up inside him. He knew their family must have pressured and schemed against her. Yet he was thousands of li away in the military camp. He could not rush home to protect her right now. He suppressed his surging anger and distress, steadied himself, and quickly weighed the pros and cons of every village and educated youth site near his garrison. Shiha Production Brigade in Ping'an Commune was the closest to his camp. The local folk were honest, the cadres were fair-minded, and the living conditions for rusticated youth were comparatively decent. It was the most reliable choice in the surrounding area. He spoke in a firm, deep voice. That will work. Xiaowan, submit your application for resettlement at Shiha Production Brigade, Ping'an Commune, Fanqing County, Jean Province. I know this educated youth site well. The cadres are fair, the villagers are kind, and conditions are relatively good. My camp is only a few li away. That is the best possible assignment you can get. Once you are there, I will look after you and keep you safe. With her final countryside assignment settled, Lin Jiwan felt a great weight lift from her shoulders. All right, second brother. I've got it. Lin Jianfeng remained full of anxiety and pressed on with his questions. Xiaowan, have you been wronged? Should I apply for short-term leave from the army and come back to Beijing right away to sort out things at home for you? I hate the thought of you being alone in the capital. Lin Jiwan soothed him gently. There is no need for that, second brother. I have already handled everything. There is no changing the outcome now. Don't ask for leave and travel all this way. It would interfere with your military duties and be pointless. As soon as my formal paperwork is finished and I have my departure date set, I will contact you the moment I arrive safely. Long-distance calls cost too much. I will hang up now. Though Lin Jianfeng was filled with worry, heartache, and reluctance, he knew long-distance calls were costly and that nothing could alter the present situation. He held back his emotions and made a solemn promise. Very well. I won't keep you from your business. Rest assured, once you get to Shiha, I will take care of everything. I will arrange supplies, accommodation, and local connections in advance and sort out whatever difficulties arise. You will have everything others have and more besides. I will not let you suffer any hardship or unfair treatment out there. Do not bear your troubles alone. Reach out to me whenever you need to. Take good care of yourself. Lin Jiwan's heart felt warm, and she gave a soft reply. They exchanged brief goodbyes and hung up. The heavy weight on her heart was finally gone. Shen Wanqing leaned over at once, eyes bright with anticipation. How did it go? Did you get the exact address? Is everything settled? Lin Jiwan lifted her gaze, determination shining in her eyes, and nodded. I got it. The location is confirmed. Since everything is sorted out, let's act right away. Shen Wanqing grabbed her hand, brimming with energy. It's still early. The Educated Youth Office stays open until 5 in the afternoon. We still have plenty of time. Let's go there straight away to finish registration, adjust your assignment, and complete all the formalities in one go. Get it done early to be safe. We can't afford delays in case policies shift and new complications pop up. Lin Jiwan had no wish to drag her feet. With money and coupons in hand and her future path decided, the sooner she completed the official procedures, the sooner she could break free from the Lin family's control and gain peace and freedom. All right. Without further hesitation, they tidied themselves, hurried out of the textile mill compound, and rode their large frame bicycles toward the municipal Educated Youth Office.